A woman saves a billionaire and thinks she'll never see him again. But hours later, an unexpected surprise changes everything. She turns around and can't believe her eyes. Hello, viewer. Thanks for joining us. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments, along with the city you're watching from. Now let's continue with the story. Clara Baker stood by the emergency room's bustling entrance, gazing at the automatic doors as they slid open and shut. Every time they parted, a rush of cold air blew in from the rainy Chicago night, and she tightened her grip on the clipboard in her hands. It was well past midnight, yet the hospital corridor was teeming with activity. Nurses hurried from one patient to another, while the hum of machinery underscored the chaos. Clara's brown eyes flickered with concern as she noticed the paramedics wheeling in another stretcher. Over the past hour, multiple victims had been admitted from a massive car accident on the highway. Her feet ached, and her dark hair was pulled into a messy bun, strands escaping around her face. She'd been on duty for nearly 12 hours, but she refused to leave her post. She had a sense, an unexplainable tug in her gut, that something critical was unfolding tonight. A seasoned nurse of 32, Clara was known for her calm demeanor, even under immense pressure. The younger nurses often turned to her for guidance. One of them, Julie McAdams, approached with sweat beading on her forehead. "Clara, we need help in Trauma Bay 2, Julie said, her tone urgent. "Dr. Coleman wants you there immediately." Clara offered a quick nod and jogged down the hallway, sidestepping two orderlies pushing equipment carts. She found Dr. Richard Coleman, the hospital's lead trauma surgeon, standing over a patient whose blood-soaked shirt had been cut open to expose severe lacerations across his chest. Alarms beeped frantically, and a strong antiseptic smell hung in the air. Without hesitation, Clara slipped on fresh gloves and positioned herself beside the doctor. "Vitals?" she asked, her voice steady. She watched as the man's chest rose and fell in shallow bursts. The attending resident replied, "His blood pressure is dangerously low. We're trying to stabilize him, but there's internal bleeding." Clara carefully placed her stethoscope on the man's bruised skin, noting the rapid heartbeat. She pressed her lips together in concentration. "Get the O-negative blood ready," she instructed another nurse. "We'll need at least 2 units." Her gaze flicked over the patient's face. Beneath the deep gashes and swelling, she could make out strong cheekbones and a hint of refined features. He was dressed in what appeared to be an expensive suit, now torn and stained with blood. For a moment, she wondered who this man was and why she felt such an odd sense of urgency about him. She helped Dr. Coleman clamp a bleeder, then placed a hand on the patient's shoulder in a gesture of reassurance that he probably couldn't feel. As the team worked, the bright overhead lights cast harsh shadows across the room. Machines beeped in a frantic chorus. To Clara, it felt like the world had shrunk to just this space, where life and death hung in the balance. The man stirred, letting out a soft groan. His eyelashes fluttered, revealing eyes that momentarily locked on Clara's. She offered the smallest smile of encouragement. He tried to speak, but could only muster a few raspy words. All Clara caught was a faint, "Thank you." Before he slipped back into unconsciousness, she nodded once and silently willed him to hold on. When the situation stabilized, Dr. Coleman directed the patient to surgery. As the orderlies carefully transferred him to a gurney, Clara pulled off her gloves and tossed them into a waste bin. She noticed a set of paramedics watching from just outside the bay, speaking in hushed tones. One of them approached Dr. Coleman and whispered something that made the surgeon's eyebrows rise. Clara gathered bits of the conversation. The patient was whisked away from the accident scene by an entourage in sleek black SUVs before the ambulance even arrived. He had apparently insisted on coming to this public hospital rather than a private facility. The paramedics spoke of how unusual the request was, given the man's obvious wealth. Outside in the corridor, the swirling tension didn't ease. Clara spotted more wounded individuals, but this particular patient seemed different. She couldn't shake the feeling that he would vanish just as quickly as he'd appeared. Before she could dwell on it, Julie called her over to assist another victim. Hours slipped by in a blur of bandages, IV lines, and urgent whispers. By the time Clara left the trauma bay, she found the bed where the mysterious man had been lying was empty. She asked around. Some said he'd been taken to surgery. Others claimed a high-priced private team showed up to transfer him elsewhere. A sense of unfinished business gnawed at her. She felt no reason to pursue it. She was just a nurse who'd done her job. Yet the quiet words of gratitude he had managed to speak lingered in her mind. As Clara finally stepped away to catch her breath, a single question kept resurfacing. Who was he? And why had she been so affected by those few seconds of contact? The overhead announcements crackled, summoning staff to another emergency. Shaking off her thoughts, Clara returned to the floor, determined to carry on. Even if she never discovered that stranger's identity, she couldn't ignore the unsettling tug, telling her this night had set something greater in motion. When the soft glow of dawn filtered through the tall windows in the hospital corridor, Clara Baker found herself standing by the nurse's station, sipping a cup of lukewarm coffee. She had been meaning to clock out hours ago, but the surge of accident victims kept her there. Exhaustion tugged at her bones, yet her mind raced with scattered images of the injured man she and Dr. Coleman had treated. Julie McAdams approached, rubbing the back of her neck. "You're still here." "I thought you were off at 4, she said, dropping onto a chair beside Clara. Clara replied, giving a half smile. "But I couldn't leave you all in the lurch. Plus, my brain wouldn't shut off." Julie nodded in sympathy. "I heard rumors about that one guy you saved. The staff is saying he might be someone important. They mentioned bodyguards. Pretty weird, right?" Clara's gaze drifted to the empty hallway ahead. "Yes, I saw them. It felt urgent, like they couldn't risk him staying here, but I haven't heard a single official update. For all I know, he's already left the hospital." Dr. Coleman passed by, catching sight of Clara. He paused briefly. "You did good work tonight," he commended, though his voice was cool and matter-of-fact. "I'm sending my notes to the administration. They'll want a detailed account of how we handled each critical case." Then he continued down the hall before Clara could respond. Julie raised her eyebrows. "He doesn't usually dole out compliments so easily. Must mean you really impressed him." Clara shrugged, uncertain whether it was praise or just procedural politeness. Her thoughts returned to the man's solemn gaze as he murmured that fragile, "Thank you." She recalled the expensive fabric of his ruined suit and the faint aroma of something like cologne mingled with blood. She had never smelled anything quite so distinct. After a final check on a recovering patient, Clara headed home. The morning sunlight shone starkly on the worn streets leading to her small apartment on the western edge of the city. When she arrived, she tried to be quiet, not wanting to wake her mother, Evelyn, who usually slept in a recliner in the living room due to her arthritis. To Clara's surprise, Evelyn was awake, crocheting a scarf that draped over her lap. "Morning, sweetheart," her mother greeted, her voice gentle. "You look exhausted." Clara sank onto the couch, slipping off her shoes. "It was an insane night, Mom. A multi-vehicle collision on I-94. We had a surge of patients, some of them in critical condition." She paused, unsure how much detail to share. One man was different. He came in badly injured, but was gone so fast. I have no idea who he was. Evelyn's worn hands paused in their slow work. Her gaze flicked over Clara's drawn face. "You've always had strong instincts, honey. If you feel something about this patient, there might be a reason for it." Clara managed a tired laugh. "Maybe. Or maybe I'm just overthinking." She draped a blanket around her shoulders and leaned back, inhaling the familiar scent of home, an odd mixture of lavender and the cinnamon tea her mother liked to brew. There was comfort here, a stark contrast to the relentless pace of the hospital. Yet her mind refused to rest, replaying each moment in the trauma bay. Before she could settle in, her phone buzzed on the coffee table. She glanced at the screen to see an unknown number. Usually, she would ignore calls at this hour, but something prompted her to pick up. A crisp, professional voice came through. "Hello, Ms. Baker. This is a courtesy call from Lakeview Private Medical Services. I'm reaching out regarding the patient you stabilized last night. He insisted we inform you that he is in stable condition and appreciates your help." A mix of relief and unease welled up inside her. "That's very thoughtful of him. Thank you for letting me know." The caller paused, as though there was more to say. "He also asked if you might be willing to visit, but he didn't want to inconvenience you. We're respecting his privacy, of course. Any message you'd like to send him?" Clara hesitated. "Just tell him I'm glad he's recovering well." She ended the call, a slight tremor in her hand. Evelyn looked at her expectantly, curiosity dancing in her eyes. "Is there something you'd like to share?" Clara relayed the conversation, still processing. "This is highly unusual, Mom. Patients don't typically track me down like this. Do you think it's odd?" Evelyn's expression was thoughtful. "Odd, yes, but sometimes life places people on our path for reasons we can't see right away. Maybe the question is whether you feel drawn to find out why." Clara brushed a few stray hairs from her face. She felt torn between a sense of obligation, after all she was just doing her job, and a pulse of intrigue that made her heart flutter. Fatigue won out for the moment. She closed her eyes, letting sleep pull her under, the echo of "he appreciates your help" lingering in her mind. Clara woke several hours later to the midday sun streaming through the thin curtains. Her muscles felt stiff from having slept in a contorted position on the couch. Evelyn had quietly moved from the recliner to the kitchen, where she was now humming a low tune as she prepared tea. Clara stretched and stood, heading toward the small kitchenette. "Feeling better?" Evelyn asked, a smile touching her lined face. "A bit," Clara replied, rubbing her eyes. "I should be back to work for the evening shift, though. We're short-staffed as always." Evelyn pointed to a steaming mug on the counter. "I made chamomile tea. Should help calm your nerves. You seem unsettled today." Clara sipped the warm liquid, letting the subtle herbal aroma soothe her senses. She mulled over the phone call from Lakeview Private Medical Services. While it was comforting to know that the patient she had treated was stable, the invitation to visit gnawed at her. Part of her was curious, wanting to see if he was truly okay, but another part warned her to maintain professional boundaries. She retreated to her small bedroom to change. Her reflection in the mirror betrayed her fatigue, faint shadows under her eyes, hair still slightly disheveled. She pulled it back into a tighter ponytail and put on a fresh set of scrubs. Her ex-husband's memory flickered through her mind as she adjusted her collar. How he once claimed she was so caring that she couldn't see when people took advantage of her. She resented that statement, yet it occasionally haunted her. A deep breath steadied her. She couldn't let old wounds define her actions now. Just as she was about to leave, her phone buzzed again. Expecting another hospital-related call, she answered. A polite, measured voice spoke. "Ms. Baker, my name is Lisa Carter. I'm with Mr. Adam Rogers's personal staff. I believe Lakeview Private left you a message earlier." Clara's heart skipped a beat. She vaguely recognized the name Adam Rogers. Hadn't she seen a headline about him once? She quickly recalled news stories about a wealthy entrepreneur who kept a low profile. Now it all made sense. The expensive suit, the protective entourage. "Yes, I got the call," Clara answered, trying to keep her tone neutral. Lisa continued, "Mr. Rogers asked me to see if you'd be open to meeting with him briefly. He wishes to express his gratitude in person. I can arrange transportation, or we can work around your schedule. He understands you're very busy." Clara paused, feeling a flurry of emotions. She glanced at Evelyn, who was tidying up plates and cups, pretending not to overhear. "I'm on my way to the hospital in about an hour. I'm afraid I don't have much time outside my shift." "That's perfectly understandable," Lisa replied. "Mr. Rogers has a small window before he undergoes a scheduled procedure, but if you prefer not to meet at all, he will respect your decision." Clara's sense of courtesy flared. He was just trying to say thank you, after all. Could he come to the hospital, or is that too difficult for him right now? There was a brief silence. Then Lisa's voice returned, calm and professional. "Let me check and call you back shortly." After hanging up, Clara exhaled sharply. She felt an odd tension, somewhere between excitement and apprehension. Adam Rogers was no ordinary patient, and if the rumors about his wealth and reclusiveness were true, she was diving into a world far from her own. She turned to Evelyn, who looked at her with quiet curiosity. "He wants to thank you," her mother said softly. "No harm in hearing him out, as long as you stay true to yourself." Clara gathered her car keys, wallet, and a light jacket. She waved goodbye to her mother, who simply gave a supportive nod. The drive to the hospital was busy as usual, city traffic inching along under a pale sky. Her mind churned through possibilities. Was Adam Rogers looking for some type of private nurse arrangement? Did he want a formal statement for the press? The endless questions made her grip the steering wheel tighter. She arrived just in time to clock in. Before she changed into her hospital ID badge, her phone rang again. Lisa's voice greeted her politely. "Mr. Rogers has decided to come to the hospital this evening. He insisted it's best not to disrupt your schedule. He'll stop by quietly. We'll keep things as discreet as possible." Clara thanked her and hung up, her pulse racing. She couldn't quite place why this felt so different from a normal patient follow-up. Part of her sensed a shift, a step into something that she couldn't entirely predict or control. Later that day, Clara stood by a row of metal lockers, tucking her purse away and pinning on her name badge. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed softly, creating a dull backdrop to the chatter of nurses starting their shifts. She attempted to focus on her routine, but her thoughts drifted to the rumored visit from Adam Rogers. Heading toward the main nurses' station, she encountered Dr. Coleman, reviewing patient charts. He greeted her with a curt nod. "Night shift again. You're pushing yourself too hard." Clara shrugged. "The staff is spread thin, and my mother's medical bills aren't paying themselves. I can handle it." He tapped a pen against the metal counter. "Be careful. Burnout won't help anyone. By the way, administration might ask you about that private patient from last night. They want to ensure all protocols were followed." Her brow furrowed. "Everything we did was by the book, right?" He nodded. "Yes, but you know how it is. When powerful people are involved, the hospital wants to cover its bases." Clara's stomach tightened. She wished this didn't feel so complicated. She recalled the phone calls, the swirling rumors about Adam Rogers' wealth. It all seemed to be blowing out of proportion. But there was no time to dwell. She had rounds to make. A couple of hours passed in a flurry of tasks. She changed IV lines, checked on post-operative patients, and guided a worried family member through the discharge process. The typical hustle of a busy evening gave her little chance to think about the possibility of Adam's arrival. Then, while helping an elderly patient into a wheelchair, she sensed a sudden hush ripple through the hallway. Glancing over, she saw a tall man with an arm in a sling walking slowly past the reception area. Clad in a tailored navy coat, he carried himself with a certain poise, despite his obvious injury. Beside him stood a poised woman in a sharp blazer, likely in her mid-30s, holding a folder tightly against her chest. The man's gaze roamed the corridor, and when his eyes found Clara, he paused. She helped the patient settle before stepping away. Approaching the pair, she noticed the man's features were the same as those from the trauma bay: strong cheekbones, though now bruised, and intense grey eyes. His dark hair was neatly combed, a stark contrast to the disarray from the night before. He offered a slight smile. "Miss Baker, thank you for agreeing to see me. I'm Adam Rogers. This is my assistant, Lisa Carter." Clara swallowed her nerves. Clara, yes. Nice to meet you officially." He shifted his weight, favoring the side without the sling. "I realize this is unusual, but I couldn't leave without expressing my gratitude. I also wanted to apologize if my abrupt transfer caused any issues. My personal physician insisted on relocating me once my condition was stabilized." Clara's voice steadied. "You don't owe me an apology. We did our best for you here, and I'm glad you're recovering well." "I was worried about your injuries." Adam's eyes flickered with a hint of warmth. "You saved my life. I know that can't be easy in a night as chaotic as the one I put you through." Before Clara could respond, Lisa cleared her throat. "Mr. Rogers, perhaps we should speak somewhere more private. The hospital staff corridor might not be the best place." Clara glanced at the break room door. "We can talk in here for a minute." She led them inside, flipping on the lights of the small, slightly cramped room. There was a table, a few chairs, and a coffee maker that had seen better days. Adam settled into a chair with careful motions, exhaling slowly. "Again, I'm indebted to you. I'd like to offer a token of thanks, financial assistance, perhaps, anything you might need." Heat rose in Clara's cheeks. She'd never been in a situation like this. "I don't want to sound ungrateful, but I can't accept money for doing my job. It goes against hospital policy and my personal ethics." His expression shifted to quiet surprise. "I see. I respect that. But please understand I wouldn't see it as a bribe or anything improper. It's simply a gesture. Maybe I could at least help with your mother's medical bills. Lisa mentioned you might be caring for her." Clara glanced at the assistant, uncertain how she'd learned about Evelyn. Lisa wore a sympathetic look but kept silent. After a moment, Clara shook her head. "I appreciate the thought, truly, but I'm handling things. I have to do it on my own." Adam studied her, as though trying to understand her. The silence in the break room felt thick. Clara cleared her throat, shifting the conversation away from her personal situation. "How is your recovery going? The hospital staff said you might need surgery to address internal bleeding." He nodded. "Yes, I've scheduled a procedure with my private surgeon. Nothing major, but enough that I'll need some rest. Honestly, I'm more concerned about the media circus if they discover I was here. My family, they prefer we keep a low profile." Clara offered a small, polite smile. She sensed unspoken burdens behind his words, burdens she had no clue about. Her mind darted to her next shift duty, to Dr. Coleman's watchful eye, and the knowledge that life was complicated enough without adding this new dimension. But there was something in Adam's gaze, an unspoken vulnerability that stirred her empathy. For a few moments, the break room was silent, except for the low hum of the fluorescent ceiling light. Adam Rogers seemed momentarily lost in his own thoughts, tapping the fingers of his free hand against the table. Lisa Carter stood behind him, poised yet slightly anxious, as if she had more to say, but was waiting for the right cue. Clara felt the urge to fill the void. "Would you like some water or coffee?" she offered, gesturing to the coffee maker in the corner. Adam shook his head politely. "No, thank you. I won't take much more of your time. I'm aware you're busy." At that moment, the door creaked open, revealing Julie McAdams, who froze upon seeing Adam and Lisa. "Oh, sorry," she stammered, clutching a manila folder. "I was just looking for a place to grab a quick break." Clara smiled reassuringly. "It's fine, Julie. I'll wrap up here and be right out." Julie nodded and backed out, her eyes lingering on Adam with a flicker of curiosity. Once they were alone again, Lisa spoke up. "Mr. Rogers, we should discuss the timeline for your next appointment. The surgeon has limited availability, and we can't delay too long." Adam seemed to weigh her words before turning his attention back to Clara. "I understand and respect your stance on financial gestures, but let me leave you with my card. If you ever change your mind, if there's anything you need, please reach out. The accident, well, it reminded me how fragile things can be. I don't want to miss a chance to repay kindness." He slid a sleek business card across the table. Clara hesitated but picked it up, reading the embossed lettering, Adam Rogers, Rogers Holdings. She tucked it into her scrub pocket, uncertain whether she'd ever actually use it. A swirl of conflicting emotions ran through her, pride in her principles, gratitude for his thoughtfulness, and a strange curiosity about this reserved man who carried such a heavy aura of expectation. Lisa stepped forward, her tone gentle but firm. "We should get you back to the car, Mr. Rogers. You need rest before your procedure." With a polite nod to Clara, she guided Adam to his feet. Clara walked them to the hospital's side exit. Raindrops from the earlier downpour clung to the glass doors, reflecting the dull glow of streetlights outside. Adam paused on the threshold, turning to face her one last time. "I hope this isn't goodbye," he said quietly. "I know how it must look, someone like me stepping into your world without warning. But I sincerely believe we crossed paths for a reason." She offered a small nod, unsure what to say. Her chest felt tight. Before she could summon a proper response, he left, footsteps echoing down the corridor. Lisa gave Clara a final courteous smile and followed him. A moment later, the pair disappeared through the exit, leaving Clara alone with the dull clamor of hospital life behind her. She returned to her station, where Julie stood sorting folders. "So," Julie whispered conspiratorially, "that was the famous Adam Rogers." Clara raised a brow. "You've heard of him?" "Who hasn't?" Julie replied with a grin. "He's this mysterious billionaire, practically the poster boy for business magazines, but rarely seen in public. I guess he's more social than rumors suggest." Clara shrugged, glancing at the business card in her pocket. "He came to say thanks, that's all." Julie laughed under her breath. "Yeah, right. I bet there's more to it. Rich, handsome, and saved by you. Sounds like something out of a movie." A surge of heat rose in Clara's cheeks. "Life isn't a fairy tale, Julie, and I'm not about to become some social climber just because he showed up with a fancy suit." Julie's teasing expression softened. "I know you're not, but it can't hurt to keep an open mind, right?" Clara gave no immediate reply and busied herself updating charts on a computer. By the time she finished her shift and headed home, the sky had turned a deep cobalt blue. Traffic was sparse, allowing her to reach her apartment in record time. She walked into the living room to find Evelyn awake and reading a worn paperback novel. Her mother's kind eyes lit up. "You look thoughtful, dear. Did something happen?" Clara dropped her bag on a chair, exhaling slowly. "Adam Rogers came to thank me in person. He offered money, or to help with your treatment, but I turned him down." Evelyn set the book aside. "He must have been trying to do the right thing. You really think you made the best choice?" Clara slumped onto the couch. I think so. It felt wrong to accept. Besides, the hospital has rules about staff receiving gifts. She didn't mention how part of her had been tempted. The idea of alleviating her mother's medical expenses was undeniably appealing, yet she couldn't shake the feeling that taking Adam's money might compromise her integrity. Evelyn nodded gently, looking at Clara with both pride and concern. You've always been strong-willed. Just be sure not to shut every door, especially if the intentions are honest. Clara recalled the moment Adam left, the hint of sincerity in his voice. She pressed her fingers against the business card still in her pocket, wondering if she would ever dare to use it. She thought of the debt piling up, the late notices on the kitchen table, and her mother's daily battle with pain. Closing her eyes, she inhaled, the weight of her dilemma settling in. A nagging question arose. Had she made the right decision? She listened to the soft tick of the clock on the wall, an unspoken tension coiling within her. Perhaps her mother was right. Maybe she shouldn't close every door just yet, but at least for tonight, she needed to rest, letting the swirl of emotions fade with the night. Clara Baker sat at her kitchen table the next morning, watching the steam curl from her mug of chamomile tea. Sunlight poured through the thin curtains, illuminating the small stacks of unpaid bills that cast a silent weight over her thoughts. The memory of Adam Rogers' visit still lingered, his voice, his genuine concern, and that business card she had tucked away in the pocket of her scrubs. Evelyn Baker, her mother, emerged from the hallway in her robe, moving carefully as she eased into a chair. Her arthritic knees often gave her trouble, but she tried not to complain. Taking a deep breath, she looked at Clara with a gentle smile. You're up early again. Sleep didn't come easily, I presume? Clara shook her head, tracing the rim of her mug with a fingertip. I couldn't shake the thoughts racing in my mind. Adam Rogers showed up at the hospital, offered help, and I turned him down. It's not that I don't appreciate it, but I'm not comfortable accepting money from him. Evelyn's eyes shone with understanding. You've always been proud, honey. That's part of what makes you who you are. Strong, upright, unwilling to bend your morals, but pride can become a burden if it stops you from letting in some good. Clara frowned. He and his assistant, Lisa, mentioned covering your medical bills. I can't deny that would be a relief, but it feels wrong to accept such a large gesture when all I did was my job. Evelyn reached across the table, placing her hand on Clara's. Sweetheart, your line of work requires more than the bare minimum. You give your patients a piece of yourself every day. Perhaps Adam sees that and wants to give something back, not as a transaction, but as gratitude. She paused. Then her voice took on a tender yet firm tone. I'm not saying you should accept all his money, but what if there are other ways you can help each other? Clara sipped her tea, letting her mother's words settle in. She remembered how Adam had looked at her, like he genuinely wanted to do something meaningful. She also recalled how quiet and burdened he seemed by his own world. I don't even know him, Clara said softly. Beyond what little I've seen at the hospital, it's not just about the money. He's under a lot of pressure from his family and his circumstances. I sense it. Evelyn nodded. Then maybe that's where you can help. Sometimes people need compassion more than a lecture. It's up to you to decide if you're willing to give him a chance. Clara couldn't deny the curiosity and concern that flickered inside her. She glanced at the bills again, feeling the tension in her shoulders. I just don't want to compromise my principles. I've been used before. With my ex-husband, everything started out good intentions. Then I realized I was the one always giving. Evelyn's grip on Clara's hand tightened. You've learned from that. It doesn't mean every opportunity will end the same way. They spent the next half hour discussing possibilities. Evelyn's calm presence reminded Clara of the unwavering support she'd had growing up. Even when her father passed away unexpectedly many years ago, her mother found a way to guide her forward, encouraging independence without shutting the door on kindness. There, at the worn wooden table, Clara felt a small seed of courage take root. She decided she wouldn't ignore Adam's offer outright. Perhaps there was a middle ground, some way to ensure that any assistance truly went toward improving hospital conditions or helping those in need. Clara resolved that, if she ever spoke to Adam again, she'd propose a philanthropic approach rather than personal gain. Just as they wrapped up their conversation, Clara's phone buzzed with a text from Julie McAdams. "Morning, hope you got some rest. Doctor, Coleman is looking for you. Something about new volunteer opportunities at the hospital." Clara raised an eyebrow at her mother, then typed a quick reply to Julie, saying she'd stop by later. Evelyn watched with a knowing smile. "Sounds like life won't slow down, even for a minute." Clara stood, quickly tidying up the cups. "I'll be back to check on you this afternoon, okay? And I'll swing by the pharmacy for your prescriptions." Evelyn waved her off. "Go on." "I'll be fine. I've got my knitting and a phone if I need you." Slipping into comfortable shoes and grabbing her purse, Clara felt a quiet determination take hold. The tension of the previous nights was still there, but her mother's words resonated deeply. She could uphold her values while remaining open to new developments. The burden of medical expenses, the stress of her exhausting shifts, and the new potential of Adam's involvement all merged into a single question. Could she find a path that aligned with her ethics and still benefit those around her? Stepping outside into the crisp air, she looked up at the clear sky. Light streamed through the branches of a nearby oak tree, reminding her that even in difficult times, hope could break through. Her feet carried her toward the hospital again, toward more questions, and possibly toward the man whose life she'd saved. Later that day, Clara entered the hospital's administrative wing for an unscheduled meeting with Dr. Coleman and a few other staff members. Normally, she stuck to the ER and patient floors, rarely stepping foot into these polished corridors lined with official plaques and office doors. She felt a sense of unease as she approached the conference room where Dr. Coleman had summoned her. She found him seated at a long table, across from two hospital board representatives, Barbara Rhodes and Neil Spencer, both neatly dressed and wearing serious expressions. As Clara walked in, Barbara motioned her to take a seat. Dr. Coleman began, "Clara, we've received inquiries from a private entity about supporting the hospital. I understand you played a role in saving a particular patient who's now interested in offering a significant donation." Her heart skipped. Adam had gone straight to the administration. It seemed like a grand gesture she hadn't anticipated. She carefully chose her words. "Yes, I've been in contact with Mr. Adam Rogers. He spoke of helping out in some capacity, but I wasn't aware of the details. Has he approached the hospital formally?" Barbara nodded. "He contacted our philanthropy department. They asked me to coordinate with you, since you're the frontline nurse who assisted him. We're hoping you might help us secure this funding." Neil Spencer leaned forward. "Mr. Rogers mentioned you specifically in his conversation with our department. He indicated that your integrity and compassion inspired him. Frankly, we don't often see donors go out of their way to acknowledge an individual staff member's influence." Clara glanced at Dr. Coleman, who wore a neutral expression. She sensed a hint of caution in his gaze. "I'm just doing my job," she said, nearly repeating the words she'd told Adam. "If he wants to donate to improve patient care or resources, that's wonderful. But I didn't—" Barbara lifted a hand, gently interrupting. "Ms. Baker, no one is implying you sought this. We simply want to ensure everything is handled professionally. The sum Mr. Rogers is considering is substantial. We could fund new equipment, expand training programs, maybe even renovate parts of the ER." Clara's pulse quickened. She thought about the always crowded waiting rooms, the outdated machines that broke down often, the patients who waited for hours. A donation like this could transform countless lives. It was exactly the kind of improvement she'd fantasized about. Yet she also pictured Adam's face, his quiet intensity, and the complexities swirling around his own life. Clearing her throat, she nodded slowly. I'd be willing to help facilitate if it means better care for our patients. I just want to ensure we maintain transparency, so there's no conflict of interest. Neil offered a relieved smile. Precisely, Doctor. Coleman has volunteered to oversee the medical logistics, and you can provide the frontline perspective. It might mean attending some events or gatherings where Mr. Rogers and his team will discuss their goals. Clara paused. Remembering the disapproving looks from Adam's mother and fiancé she'd glimpsed in the tabloids. The last thing she wanted was to get dragged into social obligations that extended beyond her job. Still, the chance to do real good in her community eclipsed her hesitations. I'll do my best, she said quietly. They spent the next half hour hashing out preliminary plans. A possible press release, scheduling a meeting with Adam's representatives, and ensuring any donation complied with hospital regulations. Clara felt like she was wading into unfamiliar territory. Fundraising and PR were not part of her usual responsibilities, yet she saw Dr. Coleman give a slight nod of approval when she voiced concerns about patient privacy and ethical boundaries. When they concluded, Clara gathered her notes and stepped into the corridor, the weight of a new kind of responsibility settling on her shoulders. Dr. Coleman followed her out, clasping a file in his hands. He cleared his throat. I'm not one for small talk, Clara, but I want to commend you on how you're handling this. Not every nurse would be so steadfast about ethics. I know the board's request might feel like stepping into a world beyond your usual duties, but trust your instincts. She let out a small breath. I appreciate that, Dr. Coleman. It's a bit overwhelming. And Adam Rogers, he's not just another donor. There's so much going on with him personally, though I barely understand it. Dr. Coleman nodded. If you need advice, my door is open. Then he turned, heading toward his next meeting, leaving Clara alone in the hallway. Her phone buzzed. A text from Lisa Carter lit up the screen. Mr. Rogers has asked if you're available to discuss the hospital's needs. Let me know when you're free. Clara's stomach knotted. The sense of crossing a threshold, stepping away from the familiar daily grind of nursing into a realm of high-profile donors and potential media scrutiny, made her uneasy. Yet she found herself replying almost immediately, "Yes, let's talk soon." She closed her eyes, recalling her mother's words earlier that morning. Maybe there was indeed a reason behind this crossing of paths. Still, she couldn't help the flicker of uncertainty that accompanied each step she took away from what she'd always known. A few days later, Clara found herself outside the sleek glass and steel facade of Rogers Holdings, located in one of Chicago's most upscale neighborhoods. She hovered by the entrance, gripping the strap of her modest handbag. Business people in tailored suits flowed in and out of the lobby like a steady current, while Clara stood there in a simple blouse and slacks, feeling distinctly out of place. Taking a steadying breath, she stepped through the revolving doors and approached the reception desk. A well-groomed man in a crisp suit offered her a polite smile. "Good morning, ma'am. Are you expected?" She gave her name, her voice wavering slightly. Moments later, Lisa Carter appeared, greeting her warmly. "Ms. Baker, so nice to see you again. Mr. Rogers is just finishing a conference call. He's asked me to bring you up." Clara followed Lisa into a gleaming elevator, the quiet hum intensifying her nerves. She wondered how she'd gotten here, recalling the chaotic hospital shift that first brought her and Adam together. She tucked a stray hair behind her ear, silently reminding herself that she was here to discuss hospital funding, not to gawk at the lifestyles of the rich. They emerged onto a top-floor suite with panoramic windows revealing the Chicago skyline. Clara paused to admire the view. The city lay before her like a glittering tapestry, skyscrapers reflecting the sunshine. Lisa led her into a spacious office where Adam Rogers stood by a wide desk, arm still in a sling. He turned with a small smile. "Clara, I'm glad you could come." He gestured toward a comfortable chair near a low table. "Please, sit." She settled into the chair, minding the carefully arranged books and decor. Everything exuded sophistication, from the plush grey carpeting to the sleek sculptures that dotted the space. Adam took a seat across from her, wincing slightly as he adjusted his injured arm. "I'm sorry it took me so long to arrange this," he began. "My recovery has been more involved than I hoped. Thank you for agreeing to meet here. I know this might feel far from your comfort zone." Clara studied him, noticing fatigue etched around his eyes. "I appreciate the invitation. It's impressive, your office. But it does feel like a different world, to be honest." He nodded. "I can imagine. I grew up around all of this. Business dealings, formalities, the pressure of a public image. Sometimes I forget it's not normal for everyone. I wanted to discuss how we can best support your hospital. My team has reached out, but I'd like to hear directly from you about the most pressing needs." Lisa stepped in with a folder, handing it to Clara. Inside, she found a bullet-pointed list of potential donation options: renovating the ER waiting room, updating imaging equipment, funding specialized training programs for nurses. Clara's mouth went dry at the dollar signs next to each item. "All of this could save lives," Clara murmured, tapping the page. "We have outdated radiology tools that often cause delays in diagnosing critical injuries. If we had a new CT scanner, for instance, we could catch internal bleeding much faster." Adam watched her intently. "Then that's where we'll start." She met his gaze, startled by the directness. "These things cost millions of dollars." "Are you sure you—" "Clara," he interrupted gently, leaning forward, "I've done the math. There's no point in halfway measures. If we're aiming to improve your hospital, let's do it comprehensively." Her heart thudded in her chest. She recalled the hospital board's excitement over Adam's pledge, but hearing his firm commitment in person was different. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything except tell me your honest opinion." "I want to channel resources where they'll do the most good." She pressed her lips together. "Honestly, a philanthropic effort like this could transform patient care. I'd want assurance that the funds are properly managed, so it directly benefits those who need it most." "Agreed," he replied, his voice resolute. "Lisa will coordinate with your administration. We'll ensure everything's transparent and properly accounted for." Clara's tension eased slightly, though a lingering sense of disbelief remained. She flipped through the folder, noting line items and proposals. When she looked up, Adam was regarding her quietly. "There's more," he said. "I'd like your continued involvement, if you're willing, not just as a nurse, but as an advisor of sorts. You understand the needs on the ground level. I don't want to rely solely on corporate strategists who have never set foot in an understaffed ER." Clara hesitated, the weight of his request obvious. "I would be honored," she replied softly, "but I also have shifts to cover. My priority is patient care, and I can't abandon my duties." His mouth curved into a genuine smile. "I wouldn't expect you to. We can work around your schedule. You can let me know what's realistic, and we'll adapt." She glanced around, realizing how radically her life had veered from its familiar path. Yet a flicker of hope sparked inside her. Maybe this was the chance to bring real change. She recalled the small conversation with her mother about not shutting every door. As she began outlining the hospital's critical needs, she felt, for the first time, that crossing into this new world might be worth the uncertainty it carried. In the following weeks, Clara found herself juggling two roles that felt worlds apart. By day, she would complete her nursing shifts at the hospital, tending to patients as usual, checking vitals, administering medications, comforting anxious families. By late afternoon, she'd slip into a more formal blouse and hurry to short meetings with Adam's team, reviewing proposals for donations and structural improvements. Though exhausted, she found a strange fulfillment in these new responsibilities. She would relay first-hand accounts of supply shortages and outdated equipment to Adam's staff, who took meticulous notes and asked pointed questions. The line between her role as a nurse and her emerging position as a consultant blurred in a way she never anticipated. One afternoon, as Clara walked through the hospital's corridors, she spotted Lisa Carter chatting with a group of administrators. They were standing near a cluster of chairs where relatives often waited for news about loved ones. Lisa wore her usual poised demeanor. But as Clara approached, she noticed a softness in the assistant's gaze. Lisa handed a sheet of paper to one of the administrators, then turned to Clara. "We're finalizing some architectural plans for the renovation. Do you have a minute to look at the proposed ER layout?" Clara glanced around, mindful of the nurses bustling by. "Sure. Let's step into the visitors' lounge for a moment." They moved to a small lounge space, away from the heaviest foot traffic. Lisa spread out a set of blueprints on a low table, pointing to color-coded zones for triage, waiting areas, and specialized treatment rooms. "We're trying to optimize patient flow so wait times decrease and critical patients are identified faster. I'd love your input on whether we're missing anything crucial." Clara studied the plans, tapping a spot. "There should be a direct path for gurneys coming from the ambulance bay, so they aren't delayed by foot traffic. Right now, it looks like they'd have to navigate through a corner near the waiting room." Lisa nodded and made a note. "You see, this is exactly the kind of insight we can't get from architects alone." Clara hesitated, curiosity getting the better of her. "Lisa, can I ask something? You're clearly competent and professional. How did you start working for Adam? Or Mr. Rogers, I mean?" A small smile curved Lisa's lips. "You can call him Adam. He prefers it. I met him several years ago when I was part of a legal team handling a corporate matter for Rogers Holdings. He admired my organizational skills and offered me a position as his executive assistant. I manage his schedule, travel, and special projects, like this one." Clara nodded, fiddling with the corner of the blueprint. "He's lucky to have someone so dedicated." Lisa's expression grew thoughtful. "He's not an easy man to read, but beneath that reserved exterior, he does care deeply. Sometimes the pressures of his world make it hard for him to show it." Clara recalled Adam's pained look when mentioning his family. "I've noticed. I guess that's why he keeps a low profile." Lisa nodded. "Partly, plus there are complicated family dynamics, especially with his mother and fiancée. Adam tries to shield his personal life from the public, which is why you'll rarely see him in gossip columns. But the accident and his sudden involvement here could draw more attention than he's used to." At the mention of a fiancé, Clara's heart did a small, involuntary flip. She knew Adam was engaged. It wasn't her place to pry, yet she couldn't deny a faint sting of curiosity. Why had Sophia, the fiancée, not made more of a public appearance during his recovery? She refocused on the blueprint, pushing aside the flicker of discomfort. Lisa folded the papers and tucked them back into a neat folder. "Thank you for your time, Clara. I'll incorporate your suggestions." Adam wanted to be here, but he's caught up in a family meeting about, well, personal matters. A question hovered on the tip of Clara's tongue. She wondered if that family meeting involved Sophia. Instead, she simply gave a polite nod. "Anytime you need me, I'll help." Lisa's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then smiled at Clara. "Before I go, I just want to say, I admire what you're doing. Balancing your nursing work with these new responsibilities can't be easy. But I think you're making a real difference." Warmth flooded Clara's cheeks. "I hope so. There's still a long way to go, but if this helps even one patient avoid complications, it's worth it." Lisa touched her arm lightly in goodbye, then hurried off to her next appointment. Clara watched her disappear down the hall, her mind swirling with gratitude and doubt. She was slowly adapting to this world of Adam Rogers, full of corporate strategy and large sums of money. Yet she felt like an outsider at times, a nurse with scuffed sneakers among polished floors and high heels. She remembered her mother's advice about not shutting every door. Perhaps by stepping through this new doorway, she could do more good than she ever imagined. She glanced back at the blueprint on the table, exhaling as she prepared to head back to her shift. The day was far from over, and so was her journey into unfamiliar terrain. 3 weeks of hectic schedules, phone calls, and after-work meetings passed, and each day Clara felt more at ease, moving between the hospital and the philanthropic discussions. The project's momentum brought her into contact with new people. Some were business partners of Adam's, others were hospital board members excited about the incoming funds. Surprisingly, Clara began to build connections she never saw coming. On a brisk Friday evening, an informal gathering took place at a newly opened restaurant on Chicago's North Side. The plan was to discuss progress on the ER renovations in a more relaxed setting. Instead of her scrubs, Clara wore a simple navy dress, feeling both self-conscious and eager to blend in. She arrived to find Adam and Lisa chatting near the entrance with a tall man in his 50s, Fred Dawson, who Lisa introduced as Adam's longtime driver and sometimes security detail. Fred greeted Clara warmly, tipping an imaginary hat in a playful manner. "The famous nurse who saved our boss. Glad to finally meet you properly." Clara smiled, feeling the weight of Fred's friendly gaze. "I'm hardly famous, just a nurse doing my best." He chuckled. "Adam's spoken highly of you, said you've got the backbone to stand up to anyone when it comes to doing what's right." She glanced over at Adam, catching his faint nod. "That might be an exaggeration," she said, her cheeks warming. Lisa checked her watch. "Shall we head to our table? I believe Dr. Coleman and 2 board members will join us shortly." They made their way inside, the restaurant's ambient lighting and low chatter creating a calm backdrop. Velvet curtains lined the walls, and soft jazz music played, giving the space an intimate atmosphere. Once seated, Clara found herself next to Fred, with Adam and Lisa across from them. As the waiter handed out menus, Fred leaned in slightly. "You look nervous. Don't worry, this place isn't as fancy as it seems. Their grilled salmon is excellent." Clara let out a small laugh, appreciating his effort to put her at ease. "Thanks. I was debating between that and the pasta." When Dr. Coleman and the board members arrived, the conversation shifted to renovations and timelines. Clara chimed in with her usual insights, how the ER staff might adapt to the construction, ways to minimize disruption for patients, and how to expedite training sessions on the new equipment. She noticed Adam listening intently, occasionally asking clarifying questions that demonstrated genuine interest. Partway through the meal, Dr. Coleman stepped away to take a phone call, and the board members wandered off to chat with someone at the bar. This left Clara, Adam, Lisa, and Fred in a cluster at the table. Lisa excused herself to check on a scheduling detail with the staff, leaving Fred and Clara alone with Adam. Fred picked up a glass of water, swirling it idly. "You know, Ms. Baker, it's nice to see Adam working on something that isn't just about corporate growth or family obligations. No offense, he added with a sideways glance at Adam. But you needed this, boss. Adam inclined his head, acknowledging Fred's comment. It's true. My days used to revolve around never-ending meetings, investment deals, and, lately, family drama. This project feels different, productive. Clara felt a wave of compassion. She recalled the fleeting mentions of Adam's family tensions. Well, I'm glad you find it worthwhile. It's making a real difference, and it's nice to know Fred believes in it too. Fred grinned. I've been with Adam for over a decade, driving him around, seeing him navigate business and personal pressures. I'm not a corporate guy, but I can tell you that this cause has him more energized than anything else I've seen. Adam reached for his glass, wincing slightly at the movement of his shoulder. Fred likes to remind me of that, he said, a warm tone lurking beneath his usual reserve. Anyway, tell me how your mother is doing, Clara. You said you were exploring new treatment options. She was touched by his memory. Yes. Some specialists recommended advanced physical therapy and a new medication for her arthritis. It's expensive, but I'm trying to figure out insurance coverage. She's hanging in there, though. Adam shifted as if he wanted to say more, then decided against it. Instead, Fred continued the line of thought. Couldn't we set up a separate fund, specifically for staff families dealing with medical hardships? Might help people like your mom. Clara hesitated, uncertain. I wouldn't want to overstep. I'm not the only one with relatives who need care. Adam nodded thoughtfully. A staff relief fund is a good idea, Fred, but it should be equitable, not just for one person. That way, no one feels singled out. I'll have Lisa run some numbers. Clara blinked, trying to reconcile her discomfort at personal help with the reality that others could benefit. I think it could do a lot of good, if managed fairly. Adam gave a confirming nod. Before Clara could elaborate, Dr. Coleman and the board members returned, conversation turning back to hospital logistics. But as dessert arrived and the group began winding down for the evening, Clara realized she'd just found something she hadn't expected. Allies. Fred's candid support and Lisa's efficiency, combined with Adam's genuine concern, created a sense of camaraderie. Walking out into the crisp night air with them, she felt more confident than she had in weeks. Maybe this wasn't the world she'd grown up in, but something told her she was no longer facing it alone. Early the next morning, Clara had just finished checking on a post-operative patient when she spotted a familiar figure in the corridor. Adam, accompanied by two suited men who looked every bit like bodyguards. Her surprise turned to unease. Public visits like this were rare for someone in his position, especially without Lisa or Fred by his side. She approached cautiously. Adam, everything okay? His expression was strained. He motioned for the two men to keep some distance, then leaned in toward Clara. I'm sorry to show up unannounced. I needed to see the progress in person, and I thought I could slip in quietly. But apparently, subtlety isn't my strong suit these days. Concern etched her face. Are you in pain? Did something happen with your shoulder? He shook his head. It's not that. I've run into some complications at home. My mother is pressuring me to finalize wedding details with Sophia, and she found out about the donation. She fears negative publicity if I become too involved in certain circles. Clara's heart sank. Certain circles, she repeated, trying not to show how the phrase stung. Adam rubbed the back of his neck in frustration. She comes from a mindset that mixing with people outside our social sphere invites scandal. It's archaic, but that's how she thinks. My mother arranged a lunch with me and Sophia to discuss how we move forward. I refused to confirm a date, and now she's furious. Clara took in his tension, not sure what to say. She tried to choose her words carefully. I'm sorry you're under such pressure, but I'm not sure how I fit into this unless... Adam met her gaze. Unless my involvement with you and the hospital is fueling her disapproval. She heard that I've been spending time with you, outside the donation context, and is implying I'm tarnishing the family name. Clara's cheeks burned. She recalled the rumors swirling around the hospital, the curious glances from staff and patients. Part of her had known that involvement with a high-profile figure like Adam could attract scrutiny, but she'd tried to ignore it. Now it was impossible to brush aside. She inhaled, steadying herself. "Look, if my presence complicates your life, maybe we should—" "No!" Adam cut her off, his voice firm. "This project matters, and you matter." He hesitated, lowering his tone as a few orderlies passed by. "I'm sorry if this is creating a mess. I'm just tired of letting my family dictate every aspect of my life." She glanced at the two men standing at a polite distance, aware they were likely privy to every word. "I don't want you to destroy your relationships on my account. If you need to slow down or reassign me—" His eyes flashed with an intensity that took her by surprise. "I won't do that. Can we speak somewhere private?" Clara led him to a small staff lounge, hoping it would be empty. She closed the door behind them, blocking out the hallway's bustle. Adam sank into a chair, exhaling. "I never meant for you to be caught in my family's crosshairs." She leaned against a locker. "I'm a big girl, Adam. I can handle rumors. My concern is whether this donation and hospital project might suffer if your family pushes you to pull out." He pinched the bridge of his nose. "I'd like to think I'm in control of my own finances. But my mother, well, she has influence. She's threatened to involve my fiancé more directly, which could complicate everything. Sophia Brooks isn't exactly thrilled about my philanthropic endeavors that pull me away from our social calendar." Clara's mind spun with the reality of it all. Sophia was presumably in the picture, yet Adam's mother seemed to be the more forceful presence. If I had a family expecting me to uphold certain traditions, I'd probably feel the same conflict, she offered gently. "It's not my place to judge. But from what I see, you're not happy living under those expectations." Adam sighed, looking older than his years. "I'm not. The accident made me realize I've been coasting along, doing what everyone else wanted. Meeting you, seeing what real people face every day. It reminded me there's more to life than superficial obligations." Clara felt a twinge of sympathy for him. Though his wealth provided luxuries she'd never know, it also came with chains she couldn't fully comprehend. The tension radiating from him was palpable. A brief knock on the lounge door startled them. One of the suited men poked his head in. "Mr. Rogers, your car is ready whenever you want to leave. Your mother called again, insisting on speaking with you." Adam's face darkened. "Give me a moment." The bodyguard left, closing the door. Clara cleared her throat, searching for the right words. "Whatever you decide, I respect your decision. I don't want to be a wedge between you and your family, but you should do what feels right, not just what they expect." He stood slowly, meeting her gaze. "Thank you. You always seem to know exactly how to cut through the noise." She dipped her head, uncertainty pooling in her chest. Outside the lounge, the hospital continued its steady hum, utterly indifferent to the personal turmoil playing out within these walls. Adam gave her a final nod and walked out, leaving Clara with the acute sense that a storm was indeed brewing, and they were both squarely in its path. Clara Baker had just finished her evening rounds when she found a moment to pause outside the hospital's rear exit. The crisp Chicago air hit her face, and she closed her eyes briefly, trying to gather her thoughts. Each day felt more complicated than the last, between managing her regular nursing duties, advising on the growing renovation plans, and fielding the fallout of Adam Rogers' family disagreements. She hardly had a spare second. As she stood there, footsteps approached from behind. Turning, she saw Dr. Richard Coleman, arms folded over his white coat. He glanced at her with concern. "I've been meaning to speak with you, Clara. The board mentioned that Adam's family might be interfering with the donation. Is everything still moving forward?" She nodded, though her smile was tight. "Yes. As far as I know, Adam's personal finances are separate from his family's, but Margaret Rogers, his mother, doesn't approve of him investing so much time and money in our hospital. There's tension, but he's still set on helping us. Doctor." Coleman looked relieved, though worry still shadowed his features. "We've made considerable progress. The contractors are ready to start initial work next month, but if the funds get pulled, we could be left in limbo." Clara's mind churned with the memory of Adam's frustrated expression when he'd visited unannounced. She wished she had a simple answer. "He wants this project to succeed, and I believe him. Still, his family sees me as some outside influence, I guess." The doctor's mouth formed a thin line. "We're all outsiders to them, Clara. But let's hope Adam holds firm. Your insight has been invaluable. Don't forget that, and if his family tries to pin blame on you, remember you didn't force him into anything." She nodded, forcing a determined look. "Thank you, Dr. Coleman. I'll keep that in mind." They parted ways, and Clara remained outside for a moment longer, inhaling the cold air. She couldn't ignore the knots in her stomach every time someone mentioned the potential for the donation to collapse. The hospital had pinned so many hopes on it, staff morale was up, and everyone seemed eager for the new resources. She prayed Adam wouldn't back out under his mother's wrath. Returning indoors, she headed to the staff lounge, where she found Julie McAdams leafing through patient files. At the sight of Clara, Julie brightened. "I've been waiting to ask, how's the big project going? Everyone's talking about the new ER design." Clara sank into a chair, exhaustion etched on her face. "It's moving, but it's complicated. Adam's dealing with family drama. His mother and fiancé are pressuring him." Julie gave a knowing look. "Rich people problems." With a wry smile, Clara shrugged. "Something like that, but it's affecting all of us, so I can't exactly dismiss it." Julie set aside a file. "If you need anything, moral support or just someone to vent to, I'm here. We're all on your side. You know, most of the staff respects what you're doing." That simple reassurance warmed Clara's heart. She thanked Julie and left the lounge, heading to visit her final patient of the shift. Mrs. Hernandez, a long-time diabetic patient, smiled weakly when Clara entered. "How are you feeling tonight?" Clara asked softly, scanning the vitals on the monitor. "Better, dear," Mrs. Hernandez replied. "You know, the new nurse said something about better equipment soon. Is that true?" Clara's chest tightened. "We're hoping so. A donor is helping the hospital upgrade machines and facilities. It's still in the works, but we're optimistic." Mrs. Hernandez patted Clara's hand. "I'm glad. I see how hard you folks work with outdated stuff. You deserve a break." Clara mustered a grateful grin, but behind it lay the fear that all these optimistic whispers might crumble if Adam's family had its way. After finishing her notes on Mrs. Hernandez's chart, she made her way to the exit, anxious to check on her mother at home. That evening, stepping into her living room brought a welcome wave of comfort. Evelyn Baker was in her recliner, crocheting what looked like an intricate shawl. "You're late," Evelyn remarked gently. "Something happened at the hospital." Clara sank onto the couch, rubbing her temples. "Just more talk about the renovation plans. Adam's family might intervene, and everyone's on edge. Dr. Coleman is worried that if the money doesn't come through, the hospital will be stuck mid-project." Evelyn studied her. "That must weigh on Adam too, having to fight his own family. You mentioned his fiancée is part of the pressure." Clara nodded, cheeks warming slightly at how personal the situation felt. Yes, Sophia Brooks. They've been engaged for a while. I get the sense the match was more arranged than romantic. His mother is pushing him to finalize the wedding. I don't know all the details, but apparently, Sophia's not thrilled about this hospital project. Evelyn pursed her lips. Money and family can be a messy mix, dear. Don't lose sight of why you started this. It's for patients like Mrs. Hernandez, for the hospital that needs these funds. Clara gazed at her mother, comforted by her unwavering support. You're right. I just hope Adam can handle the conflict. I don't want him sacrificing relationships because of me. Evelyn's voice was steady. From what you've told me, it sounds like he's deciding to live on his own terms, not just his family's. Maybe saving his relationships isn't about giving in. Sometimes it's about standing up for what's right. Clara leaned her head back, letting her mother's words soak in. There was no easy path, but knowing she had Evelyn in her corner soothed her fatigue. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The hospital was hosting a small press gathering, and Adam was due to speak. She closed her eyes, bracing herself. The trials weren't about to end anytime soon. Morning light streamed through the hospital's glass entrance as Clara hurried in, balancing a stack of pamphlets in one arm. The pamphlets detailed the upcoming renovations, meant to be handed out at the short press briefing scheduled for later. She'd barely slept, worried about how the event might go if Adam's personal issues overshadowed the hospital's progress. She spotted Lisa Carter near a makeshift podium in the lobby, instructing a small cluster of media personnel. Lisa's professional demeanor was as unwavering as ever, but a subtle tension flickered in her eyes. Clara approached, adjusting her jacket nervously. "Any word on whether Adam will make it?" Clara asked, her voice low. Lisa nodded, flipping through a notebook. "He's on his way, but not alone. His mother insisted on accompanying him. And Sophia Brooks might be here as well." Clara's stomach tightened. The idea of meeting both Margaret Rogers and Sophia in a public setting made her heart pound. She tried to keep her thoughts focused on the greater good, the hospital's improvement. "All right, we'll handle it," she murmured. "This is about helping patients, not personal drama." As the press trickled in, Dr. Coleman arrived with several board members in tow, greeting reporters with polite handshakes. Clara busied herself distributing pamphlets to local journalists who asked about the timeline for renovations and the impact on patient care. She found comfort in discussing facts, equipment upgrades, improved triage processes, staff training, things she understood deeply. Then, near the entrance, a subdued hush fell over the gathering. Clara glimpsed Adam stepping inside. His arm was mostly healed by now, freed from the sling, though he still moved cautiously. On one side was Margaret Rogers, elegantly dressed, her posture stiff. On the other, Sophia Brooks, a striking woman with immaculate makeup, wearing a tailored coat that exuded wealth and status. Clara swallowed hard, uncertain if she should greet them or hang back. Lisa smoothly intercepted the trio, guiding Adam to the podium, while Margaret and Sophia remained a few steps behind. Dr. Coleman began a short speech, welcoming everyone and explaining how critical the upcoming renovations would be for the city's public health. Adam took the mic next, giving a concise statement about the importance of modern medical equipment and how philanthropic efforts could bridge gaps in underfunded hospitals. He thanked Clara by name for her dedication, prompting the cameras to swivel toward her, though she tried to maintain a composed expression. Midway through Adam's address, a reporter directed a question at Margaret. "Mrs. Rogers, as part of the influential Rogers family, how do you feel about this significant investment in a public hospital? Some might say it's unusual for such elite society members to focus philanthropic efforts here rather than private clinics." Margaret's polite smile held a frosty edge. "We believe in civic responsibility, of course. Adam's generosity speaks for itself." Her words were carefully chosen, but Clara sensed underlying displeasure, as though Margaret was trying to maintain appearances despite personal reservations. Another journalist then aimed a question at Sophia. "Ms. Brooks, as Adam's fiancée, are you supportive of this project as well?" Sophia hesitated, her eyes flicking toward Adam. "Philanthropy is a family tradition. We appreciate the hospital's efforts, and I trust Adam's judgment." Her tone was clipped, lacking warmth. She quickly turned away, handing the conversation back to Adam. Despite the tense atmosphere, the rest of the briefing proceeded without major incident. Cameras flashed, and local news reporters filmed short segments. Lisa expertly navigated questions, ensuring the focus stayed on the hospital's needs rather than Adam's personal life. After the reporters dispersed, Clara found herself face to face with Margaret and Sophia near the podium. She tried to remain calm, recalling her mother's advice about confidence. Adam stood slightly to the side, watching warily. Margaret extended a cold handshake. "Ms. Baker, I'm told you've been quite influential in guiding my son's decisions regarding this project." Clara met her gaze steadily. "I'm a nurse. I merely shared what the hospital lacks and how a donation could help." Sophia's lips curved in a faint, dismissive smile. "Indeed, a noble cause, but also a demanding one. Adam's schedule is already full. Our wedding plans can't be neglected." Clara noted the possessive ring in Sophia's tone. She tried to keep her voice even. "I appreciate everything Adam is doing, but the project won't succeed if he's pressured to back away. The staff is depending on these upgrades." Margaret lifted her chin. "We're well aware of the hopes riding on this, but Adam's primary obligations remain with his family and fiancé. I trust we understand each other, Miss Baker." Clara felt her palms sweat. She recognized the unspoken threat. Before she could respond, Adam stepped in, placing a hand gently at Clara's elbow. "I think that's enough for today," he said evenly. "We've accomplished what we came for." Margaret and Sophia exchanged a glance, then offered curt nods. As they left, Clara's stomach churned with the realization that the moral crossroads she faced extended beyond simply helping the hospital. She was now contending with a family determined to keep Adam on a path set long before she entered the picture, and the choices each of them made would have far-reaching consequences. Late that evening, the hospital corridors had quieted to a hushed lull. Clara slipped into the empty cafeteria, seeking solace in a cup of peppermint tea. The day's events weighed heavily on her, Adam's poised speech clashing with Margaret's ice-cold demeanor, Sophia's veiled threats, and the knowledge that the entire renovation project dangled in precarious balance. Just as she settled at a corner table, Adam appeared in the doorway. He looked as though he'd searched every room to find her, his shoulders slumped under the overhead lighting. In that moment, he seemed more human than ever, stripped of his usual confident veneer. "Mind if I join you?" he asked quietly. Gesturing to the empty chair across from her, she nodded, wrapping her hands around her steaming mug. "Go ahead. I'm assuming your family didn't take things too well after the press briefing." Adam let out a weary sigh. "You could say that. My mother confronted me immediately about wanting to finalize a date with Sophia, threatening that if I don't comply soon, she'll withdraw certain family investments, some of which indirectly benefit my company. She's convinced that I'm tarnishing our name by pouring resources into a public hospital and publicly praising you." Clara's throat tightened. "I never wanted to cause friction between you and your family." He shook his head. "This friction was always there, Clara. You just gave me the courage to face it. But now I'm at a breaking point. I can't keep juggling everyone's expectations." She sipped her tea, trying to steady her breath. "You have options. It's your money, your life. But if going against them jeopardizes your entire livelihood..." Adam leaned forward, meeting her gaze. "Don't you see? My livelihood is more than a pile of money. I've lived under my family's thumb for so long. Their respect for me hinges on fulfilling obligations I never asked for. With you, with this hospital, I've finally done something meaningful. I'm not giving that up." Her cheeks warmed at his earnest tone. She recalled the subtle shift in him when they first discussed the donation. "I understand. I just want to be sure you're prepared for the fallout. Margaret and Sophia don't seem to be backing down." Adam's jaw tightened. "Sophia was arranged, in a sense. Our families have known each other forever. The engagement was more of a strategic alliance than a love match. But I can't lie to myself. I don't want to marry someone who stands against everything I believe in." Clara's eyes flickered with empathy. She knew the pang of a mismatched relationship from her own failed marriage. "Then you have a right to say no." He laced his fingers together on the table, voice trembling slightly. "It won't be easy. My mother wields influence in ways I can't fully describe, but I'm tired of living a life that's dictated by others." Before Clara could respond, footsteps echoed in the hall. They both looked up as Dr. Coleman appeared, relief and tension battling on his face. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but I need you, Clara. We've got a code in the ER and we're short on hands." Clara shot to her feet, her nurse instincts kicking in immediately. Adam stood as well, concern etched into his features. "Go," he urged softly. "I'll be around if you need me." She flashed him a grateful look, then raced after Dr. Coleman. The adrenaline of emergency care took precedence over everything else, at least for the next hour. Clara and the team fought to stabilize a patient who had suffered a severe heart attack, barking out orders for medication and monitors. The chaotic whirl of machines, sweat and urgent voices made her forget the world outside. When at last the patient's condition improved, Clara left the ER feeling both victorious and drained. She found Adam in the waiting area, leaning against a wall with arms crossed. Upon seeing her, his posture straightened. "How is the patient?" he asked gently. "Stable, for now," Clara replied, exhaling. "Hopefully, he'll recover." Adam studied her, sympathy and admiration mingling in his eyes. "You give everything you have for people you barely know. It's remarkable." She shrugged, suddenly self-conscious. "It's what we do here. We fight for every life that comes through those doors." His gaze swept over her tired face, and a soft hush enveloped them. For a fleeting moment, she felt a connection that went beyond shared concern for the hospital. But the reality of his family crisis loomed large. A text buzzed on Adam's phone, and he glanced down. "It's from my mother," he said in a flat tone. "She wants an immediate family meeting tomorrow. Sophia's father is flying in, probably to pressure me further." Clara's heart clenched. She heard the finality in his voice. The confrontation he'd been dreading had arrived. The weight of it pressed on them both, though for different reasons. Adam offered a wry smile, pockets the phone, and gave a low sigh. "I'll let you get some rest, Clara. Tomorrow might bring major changes, one way or another." She nodded numbly, her own thoughts swirling with concern. He left, footsteps echoing across the linoleum, and Clara stared after him for a few seconds before turning back to her duties. Shadows of an oncoming storm hovered, and she sensed they were barreling toward a confrontation that could reshape everything. Clara arrived home just before dawn, her legs heavy from endless hours on her feet. The faint glow of a lamp radiated through the living room window, signaling that Evelyn was awake. Letting herself in quietly, she discovered her mother seated in her usual recliner, crocheting a blanket in soothing shades of cream and gold. "You're up early," Clara murmured, dropping onto the couch. Evelyn offered a gentle smile. "Pain in my joints woke me, plus I was worried about you," She put her crocheting aside. "How's the renovation project holding up? And are you all right, dear?" Clara rubbed her temples. "The project is moving, but Adam's on the brink of a major clash with his family. They've basically threatened to pull financial support from him if he doesn't meet their demands." Evelyn listened intently. "And how does he feel about all this?" "He wants to push forward, but I can tell it's tearing him up inside." Clara leaned back, eyes heavy. "His mother wants him to finalize his wedding plans with Sophia. He's not in love, but it's what the family expects." Evelyn tapped her fingertips together, thoughtful. "People in his position often face obligations that outsiders can't comprehend. It sounds like he's trying to break free, but that can come at a steep price." Clara's gaze drifted to the quiet street beyond the window. "I just hope the hospital doesn't pay that price along with him. We've become so dependent on this donation. If it falls through, it'll be devastating. And—" She paused, heart twisting. "I care about Adam, not just for his money, but who he is beneath all the pressure." Evelyn reached over and patted Clara's hand. "He sees something special in you. The fact that he's still fighting says a lot. However, you must be cautious. Your well-being matters too." Before Clara could respond, her phone buzzed on the coffee table. A text from Lisa. "Adam's family meeting is happening this afternoon. He's asked if you can be available later. He may need your support." Clara frowned at the screen. "He wants me around after his meeting with them," she muttered to her mother. "He's probably bracing for the worst." Evelyn's gentle smile returned. "Then be there for him, as far as your heart guides you. But keep in mind, you don't owe anyone your peace, no matter the cause." Clara read the text again and typed a quick reply confirming she would be nearby. She felt a mixture of dread and determination. For so long, her life had been confined to the hospital walls and the small apartment she shared with her mother. Now she was stepping into a battle on behalf of a man whose background was nothing like hers. Yet she couldn't deny a spark of conviction. This cause, this man, and this hospital mattered. After grabbing a few hours of restless sleep, Clara headed back out, stopping first at the pharmacy to pick up her mother's medication. With that done, she drove across town, weaving through midday traffic until she reached a quiet coffee shop near Adam's corporate headquarters. Lisa had suggested they meet there if the family meeting ended badly. Settling at a corner table, Clara nursed a latte, heart thrumming as she watched people come and go. Every buzz of her phone made her jump. Finally, after nearly an hour, it vibrated in her hand. "Lisa, they're done. It's rough. Adam's on his way to you." Clara's stomach twisted. She hardly had time to brace herself before she spotted Adam at the entrance, scanning the shop with tense features. When their eyes met, he approached with stiff shoulders. He slid into the chair opposite her, exhaling as though he'd been holding his breath for hours. "They gave me an ultimatum," he said without preamble. "Marry Sophia by the end of the quarter, or forfeit my stake in certain family-controlled investments. They threatened to publicly shame me if I don't comply." Clara's hand clenched around her cup. "I'm sorry." His dark eyes held a storm of emotion. "Don't be." "I told them no. I refuse to continue with this farce." Sophia was furious. She stormed out, "And my mother warned me this will ruin everything." Clara reached across the table, lightly resting her fingertips on his wrist in a gesture of solidarity. "Whatever happens, you stood by your beliefs. That's no small feat." Adam's face softened, yet a flicker of fear lurked behind his gaze. "I'm aware of the risks. The donation is coming solely from my personal assets, which I retain control over. But if my mother decides to sabotage me publicly, or if Sophia's family gets vindictive, the scandal might overshadow the entire project." Clara's grip on his wrist tightened. "We'll face that if it comes. Right now, the hospital needs you, and you're here. That's enough." He nodded slowly, relief mixing with uncertainty. The coffee shop's muted chatter drifted around them, though neither noticed. In that shared moment, Clara felt a faint spark of hope. Adam had chosen a path aligned with his conscience, even though it might cost him dearly. She prayed it wouldn't destroy him, or the dream they both harbored of transforming the hospital into a beacon of improved care. Clara and Adam lingered at the coffee shop until the late afternoon sky dimmed outside the windows. People came in and out for their caffeine fixes, but the two of them remained in hushed conversation, sorting through the aftermath of his ultimatum. Occasionally, Lisa would message updates from the office, detailing new rumors swirling about Adam's break with his family. At one point, Clara's phone lit up with a call from Dr. Coleman. She stepped away from the table to answer. He sounded anxious. "Clara, we've been getting some strange inquiries from local reporters, possibly digging for gossip. They're asking about you and your involvement with Adam." Her pulse quickened. Why would they focus on me? Someone leaked that the nurse who saved him is now playing a key role in the hospital project and that his engagement is in jeopardy. They're spinning it into a scandalous story, insinuating a personal relationship. Clara felt the blood drain from her face. "Oh no, that's the last thing we need." "Precisely," Dr. Coleman replied. "We're heading off any sensational headlines by sticking to facts. This donation is philanthropic. You're the nurse consultant. But I want you to be aware the media might push further. Just keep your guard up." When Clara returned to the table, Adam's concerned expression deepened as she relayed Dr. Coleman's words. He clenched his jaw. "My mother must be behind this. She knows how to manipulate the press, or at least nudge them in the direction of salacious rumors." Clara sank into her chair. "I can't believe this is happening. All I wanted was to help the hospital." Adam reached for her hand, gently clasping it on the tabletop. "I'm sorry you're caught in the crossfire. We can release a statement clarifying the situation." She nodded, her heart drumming. "A statement might help, but if the press is hungry for a scandal, they'll twist our words anyway." Lisa suddenly entered the cafe, breathless, a tablet clutched under her arm. She slid into a seat and wasted no time. "Adam, we have a crisis. Margaret is threatening to call an emergency board meeting at Rogers Holdings, claiming you're mentally unfit to make executive decisions under stress." Adam stared at Lisa in disbelief. "That's absurd." "She can't have me declared incompetent." Lisa's tone was grim. "She might not succeed, but the mere suggestion can damage investor confidence. We could see stock prices tumble, spooking the philanthropic project's credibility." Clara felt an urgent sense of dread. Adam rubbed his temples, then his eyes flicked toward Clara. "We'll fight it," he said firmly. "My legal team won't let this stand." "But the next few weeks could be ugly." Clara tried to remain calm, recalling how important it was to keep the hospital staff focused on patient care instead of swirling rumors. "What about the donation?" she asked softly. "Is it still safe?" "Yes," Lisa confirmed. "He has the liquidity in a separate fund. It's shielded from direct board influence. Worst case, the money is fully transferred to the hospital soon. But the backlash could be extensive." Adam caught Clara's gaze. "I want to push forward. I'm not backing down, no matter what my mother throws at us. If we let fear stop us, all this was for nothing." She inhaled shakily. "I agree. But we have to be strategic. We can't let them spin this into a tabloid fiasco that overshadows the real issue, saving lives at the hospital." Lisa nodded, tapping the tablet. "I'm coordinating with the hospital's PR. Doctor Coleman is on board. The goal is a unified message. Adam Rogers is supporting public health improvements, and Nurse Baker is the liaison. End of story." Yet Clara felt far from certain it would be the end of story. The tension humming in the air suggested a volatile confrontation lurking just around the corner. She glanced at Adam, whose shoulders bore the weight of a lifetime of family control. He was steeling himself for a drawn-out fight. The three of them left the coffee shop together, stepping into a cold wind that whipped leaves along the sidewalk. Evening lights blurred against the city skyline, painting the world in neon hues. Clara squared her shoulders, reminded of her mother's advice to be true to herself. Whatever storm brewed next, she would face it with the same resolve she brought to her patients, calm, focused, and unyielding in her convictions. Adam gave her a parting look that spoke volumes: gratitude, resolve, and an unspoken apology for dragging her into this feud. She managed a small nod, heart pounding as she turned toward her car. The clouds were gathering, and they would have to weather them together, no matter the cost. A week after Adam's tense family meeting, the pressure around him and the hospital had intensified. Clara Baker tried to focus on her nursing responsibilities, but whispers followed her through the corridors. Some staff members believed the rumors that she was romantically involved with Adam, while others saw her as the key figure ensuring the hospital's much-needed renovation. One afternoon, she was taking a short break in the staff lounge when Dr. Coleman entered, the lines on his forehead deep with concern. He handed her a folded newspaper. On the front page, a headline blared: "Billionaire heir defies family, pours fortune into public hospital, mysterious nurse at center of storm." A grainy photo showed Adam stepping out of the hospital doors, Clara partially visible behind him. Dr. Coleman pulled a chair closer. "Clara, I'm sorry you have to see your name dragged into the spotlight like this. The board's aware of how stressful this is. But they still want us to push forward with the renovation plans." She pressed her lips together, eyes scanning the article. It painted a sensational tale of star-crossed benefactor and nurse, fueling speculation that Adam was casting aside his fiancée for Clara. The piece barely mentioned the actual improvements the hospital desperately needed. "This is awful," she said, voice quivering with anger. "It undermines everything we've worked for." "Doctor." Coleman placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "Adam's PR team insists they'll release a statement clarifying your role, but we can't stop all the rumors. I need to know if you're all right." Clara forced a nod. "I'm fine, just worried about the donation. If Adam's family escalates, the negative press might frighten away any additional support." He gave her a sympathetic glance before leaving to attend an emergency call. Clara stared at the headline again, heart pounding. She felt her phone buzz in her pocket, a text from Adam. "I'm so sorry about that article. I'll handle it. Please don't let it get to you." She typed a quick reply. "I trust you. Let me know if there's anything I can do." Then she headed back to her station, determined to keep her focus on the patients who depended on her. Later that evening, Adam arrived outside the ER with Lisa and Fred in tow. They'd coordinated a discreet visit to check progress on the renovation prep. Plywood walls had gone up in one wing, while staff moved equipment around to make space for incoming machinery. Clara found them surveying the area near the main corridor, rolling up dusty blueprints. Adam greeted her with a tense but warm smile. "Construction is on track to start in 2 weeks, and we just finalized the purchase of a new CT scanner. It'll arrive next month." Relief rushed through Clara. "That's fantastic news. Our radiology department will be thrilled." She looked around, noticing Lisa's sober expression. "But I take it that's not why you're here tonight." Lisa lowered her voice. "We've had to expedite the timeline. Adam's mother contacted some high-level people, floating the idea that this entire project is just a personal scandal. She suggested donors should be careful partnering with him." Fred, who'd been scanning the hallway, chimed in. The only bright side is that Adam transferred enough funds to cover most of the initial work, so even if the rest of the world backs off, we won't be stuck at square one. Clara felt a pang of guilt. I hate that my involvement caused part of this mess. If it were just about the hospital. Adam cut her off gently. You've done nothing wrong. This is about my family not tolerating my independence. The press is a weapon they're using. She nodded, noticing Fred's uneasy glance at the nearby staffers. We should probably move somewhere quieter, Fred suggested. They retreated to a small conference room, which had been cleared of furniture in preparation for the renovation. The bare walls and echoing space underscored the seriousness of their situation. Adam leaned against a window ledge, arms folded. My mother sent me an ultimatum. If I don't publicly reconcile with Sophia and end this distraction, she'll not only smear my reputation, but also threaten some of my business partners. She has connections that span multiple industries. Clara's pulse quickened. I'm so sorry. I wish there was a clearer way to handle this. He pressed his eyes shut for a moment. I expected retaliation, but it's worse than I thought. I'm going to release a formal statement explaining my reasons for stepping away from the engagement and reaffirming the hospital donation. It will likely spark more media frenzy. Lisa spoke softly. If we don't address it head-on, the rumors will escalate, and if your mother wins over the court of public opinion, it could weaken your standing in the boardroom and in your philanthropic circles. Clara recalled her mother's words about standing up for what's right. She reached out, covering Adam's hand with hers. We'll face it. The hospital is worth this fight, and so are you. A flicker of determination lit his eyes. Then we make our stand. No more half measures. He exhaled, shoulders tense. I'll gather my legal team in the morning. Lisa, let's coordinate with the hospital on their statement. If the press wants a story, we'll give them the truth. They left the conference room together, a united front amid the swirling chaos. Clara's heart hammered with both fear and conviction. The line had been drawn. Whatever came next would be the greatest test of their resolve, and perhaps of her personal strength in this entire ordeal. Clara barely recognized the sound of her own name as she watched live news coverage on a small TV in the hospital break room. A local reporter was recapping Adam Rogers' public statement from earlier that day. He had announced his official split from Sophia Brooks and pledged an unwavering commitment to fund the public hospital's renovation. Clips showed him calmly addressing a swarm of reporters, ignoring a flurry of intrusive questions about his personal life. Now, a debate segment was playing. A stern-looking commentator proclaimed, Adam Rogers' choice is a bold one, but it risks alienating his high society connections. We can't ignore the role of nurse Clara Baker, rumored to be at the center of his decision. Clara switched off the TV, her face warming. She felt scrutinized in a way she never had before. It was one thing to handle tough medical emergencies. It was another to be tossed into the court of public opinion. She stepped into the hallway, where staff buzzed with the day's developments. Julie McAdams approached, wide-eyed. Clara, the phones at the nurses' station keep ringing. A few reporters are fishing for quotes about you and Adam. Dr. Coleman is telling them we're busy providing patient care. Clara groaned. That's exactly what we should be doing, taking care of patients, not feeding their gossip. Julie placed a supportive hand on Clara's shoulder. Don't let it get to you. Most people here know you've acted with integrity. The hospital is the real story. Clara nodded, forcing a small smile. Thanks. I'm trying to remember that. A moment later, Lisa Carter rushed in. Her usually composed expression tinged with anxiety. She spotted Clara and hurried over. Adam is with Fred outside, but we have a problem. His mother announced her own press conference this afternoon, claiming Adam is being manipulated. Clara's stomach lurched. Manipulated by whom? Me? Lisa's silence answered the question. After a beat, she sighed. Margaret is apparently hinting that you used Adam's accident to worm your way into his life. She's suggesting you're out for personal gain. Clara's heart pounded. That's insane. We have no evidence to prove otherwise, except everything we've done to show we're just trying to help the hospital. Lisa gave a tight nod. Which is why I think you should address the public, alongside Adam. Let people see the genuine care you have for your patients. If we don't respond, Margaret's narrative might take root. Clara hesitated, chewing her lip. She never wanted to be a public figure. Cameras and interviews made her skin crawl. But if she kept silent, Margaret might shape a story that undermined everything. I can't promise I'll be good at it, but I'll do whatever it takes to protect the project and Adam's reputation. Lisa exhaled in relief. Thank you. We'll keep it short and direct. The hospital board will likely support you, and Dr. Coleman can back up your record of selfless work. They spent the next half hour in a small administrative office, hastily crafting statements. Fred hovered nearby, stepping out to answer Adam's calls. Clara could hear snippets of conversation about legal threats and media appearances, her nerves frayed with each passing minute. Eventually, Adam walked in, his eyes red-rimmed from stress. He sank into a chair beside Clara. Margaret's press conference starts soon. She's already feeding statements to certain outlets. Are you ready to go on record about us? About everything. Clara inhaled sharply, meeting his gaze. I'll do it, but I want to emphasize patient welfare, hospital improvements, and your generosity, not some tabloid romance. A flicker of a smile crossed his face. Exactly what I hoped you'd say. Let's make sure the world knows we're not star-crossed lovers out for attention. Still, a flutter of something like regret tugged at her chest. Deep down, she couldn't deny her own growing feelings for Adam, nor ignore the strong connection they seemed to share. But any personal emotions would have to wait. The hospital and their reputations hung in the balance. Together, they drafted a concise statement. Adam's donation was strictly philanthropic, born from gratitude for Clara saving his life. Clara's role was an advisory one, bridging healthcare needs and resources. They would not answer questions about Adam's cancelled engagement beyond confirming it was by mutual agreement. A courtesy, if not entirely true. Their aim, keep the focus on the hospital's future. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, they wrapped up. Clara stood, tension knotting her shoulders. Lisa gave her a nod of encouragement. You'll do fine. Honesty and sincerity will shine through. Adam squeezed Clara's hand briefly, the gesture sending a soft rush of warmth through her. No matter what they throw at us, we stand by the truth. Clara swallowed hard, thoughts swirling. She recalled the simpler days before the accident, before Adam Rogers crashed into her life. Yet as she looked at him now, she couldn't imagine going back. Whatever came next, they would face it head-on, together, if fate allowed. A makeshift stage had been set up in the hospital's renovated West Wing, still under construction, but safe enough for a brief press address. Workers had temporarily paused their tasks, leaving behind ladders and tools against half-finished walls. Even with the bright construction lights, the space felt raw and industrial, an unusual setting for a press event. Clara arrived wearing her scrubs as she'd just finished tending to an ICU patient. She stood beside Adam and Lisa, the trio facing a row of cameras and microphones. Dr. Coleman and a few board members hovered nearby, ready to offer supportive commentary. A hush fell as a handful of reporters assembled, some adjusting cameras, others tapping away on phones. Clara recognized a local news journalist who had once covered a touching story about a pediatric patient's recovery. But there were also new faces, tabloid reporters who clearly sought a scandal. Adam cleared his throat and leaned toward the podium. Thank you for coming. We'd like to clarify our position regarding recent rumors. My decision to donate a substantial fund to this hospital is personal, rooted in gratitude for the care I received. Nurse Clara Baker, who assisted me that night, provided critical medical attention, nothing more, nothing less. Clara stepped forward, her pulse racing. She spoke in a firm, quiet tone. I'm here on behalf of the hospital staff. Our goal is to improve patient care, upgrade equipment, and ensure better services for the community. Any suggestion of ulterior motives is false. The staff and I are grateful for Mr. Rogers' generosity. A reporter raised a hand. Ms. Baker, can you address the claim that you and Mr. Rogers have a romantic relationship behind his fiancée's back? Her throat constricted. She wanted to snap back at the lurid insinuation, but she remembered Lisa's coaching. Keep it factual, calm. That claim is baseless. I'm a nurse, and I take my professional ethics seriously. Mr. Rogers and I have worked closely only to facilitate the hospital's needs. His engagement was a separate matter. Adam nodded. I have ended my engagement with Mrs. Brooks due to personal reasons unrelated to this hospital project. I ask that you respect her privacy and mine. The same reporter persisted. Is it simply coincidence you broke the engagement after meeting Mrs. Baker? Adam's jaw tightened. He took a measured breath. Coincidence or not, I won't discuss the personal aspects any further. My focus is on fulfilling a pledge to improve healthcare access for those who need it most. Doctor, Coleman stepped in, clearing his throat. If there are no more questions regarding the donation or the construction timeline, we'll wrap up. The staff is eager to finalize these renovations and continue saving lives. For a tense moment, the reporters continued snapping photos, then one by one, they lowered their cameras. The crowd began to disperse, though some lingered, hoping for candid comments. Lisa guided Clara and Adam away from the microphones, where Fred stood waiting to escort them out. They walked through a corridor that led to the hospital's older wing, the transition from fresh construction to worn-out walls, underscoring just how badly upgrades were needed. Clara exhaled, shoulders aching from the tension. I hope that helped. We did what we could. Adam gently rested a hand on her arm. You were perfect, calm under pressure. Thank you for speaking up. She swallowed a mix of relief and lingering anxiety. Reporters might still twist our words. Lisa nodded in agreement. Yes, but we put our narrative on the record. Any blatant misrepresentations can be countered by referencing this official statement. We're better off now than before. They passed a group of nurses who greeted Clara with quick smiles. Word of the press briefing had spread fast, and it seemed many on staff supported Clara's stance. She felt a surge of gratitude. No matter how twisted the public story might become, inside these hospital walls, people knew her true character. Once they reached a side exit, Fred offered to drive Adam and Clara somewhere less chaotic. Lisa bowed out, explaining she had to return to the office to handle a few urgent calls. Clara hesitated, glancing at the time on her phone. I still have a couple of hours left on my shift, but maybe I can take a short break. Adam's expression brightened slightly. Let's grab coffee, at least. My treat. Fred navigated the city's early evening traffic until they reached a quiet cafe near the lakefront, far from the usual paparazzi haunts. Inside, the ambiance was warm and subdued. The two ordered cappuccinos, settling into a corner booth. The cafe's soft jazz music filled the comfortable silence between them. Adam finally spoke, voice low. Today felt like a turning point. We faced my mother's smear campaign head-on. I'm done living in the shadows. Clara sipped her coffee. It was courageous. I know it must have been difficult to stand up to your family so publicly. Are you okay? He let out a brittle laugh. I wish I knew. I've spent years trying to please them. Now I feel strangely liberated, yet terrified. There's no going back." She reached across the table and covered his hand briefly. "Sometimes, when you fight for something bigger than yourself, fear is part of it. But you're not alone in this. The hospital staff, Lisa, Fred, they all see the good you're trying to do." Adam's gaze held hers. For a moment, the commotion of the day melted away, replaced by a quiet sense of understanding. Despite all the rumors, the disagreements, and the heartbreak, something inside them both had shifted. An unspoken promise lingered in the space between them, though neither dared to articulate it. They finished their coffees, stepping outside into the chilly air. The lake glimmered under the setting sun, and a light breeze ruffled Clara's hair. She shivered slightly, both from the cold and the awareness of how close she and Adam had grown through adversity. He sighed, hands in his coat pockets. "I won't pretend the fight is over, but at least we can stand tall, knowing we did what was right today." Clara nodded, a tentative smile forming. "And tomorrow, we keep building on that, one step at a time." They walked back to the car in companionable silence, the weight of challenges still looming but softened by the quiet reassurance that they had each other's backs. Nothing was certain, but for the first time, Clara felt a powerful certainty about the path she was on and the person by her side. Over the following days, the hospital's renovation project continued moving forward. Workers arrived at dawn, hammering, drilling, and gradually transforming the old, cramped corridors into more efficient spaces. Clara found solace in the tangible progress. New walls rising, modern wiring being installed, and the promise of advanced equipment deliveries. Each improvement felt like a victory against the forces trying to sabotage their mission. One afternoon, Clara finished transferring a patient from the ER to a newly completed wing for observation. She stepped into what would soon become a larger nurses' station, impressed by how much had changed in such a short time. Julie McAdams appeared at her side, grinning. "Look at this place. So much more room for triage and supplies. A month ago, I never would have believed it." Clara smiled, her spirits lifting. Adam's donation made all the difference. It's incredible how quickly things move when money and determination align. Julie shrugged, crossing her arms. "We always had the determination, but not the funds. Now we have both." They shared a moment of awe before Clara's phone vibrated in her pocket, expecting a hospital-related text. She was surprised to see Adam's name on the screen. "Need to talk. My mother's calling an emergency board meeting at Rogers Holdings tomorrow. She's determined to strip me of certain powers. Lisa says it's time to make a strategic move. Can we meet tonight?" Clara felt her stomach clench. She quickly typed back, "Of course. Where and when?" His reply came swiftly, "Meet me at my office after your shift." As evening fell, Clara made her way to Rogers Holdings. The building's sleek exterior seemed more imposing than before, possibly because she sensed an impending battle inside. Lisa greeted her in the lobby, quietly leading her upstairs. Adam stood by a massive window in his top-floor suite, staring at the city lights with grim intensity. Fred was nearby, arms folded. The tension in the room was palpable. When Clara arrived, Adam turned, offering a weary nod. "Thanks for coming." She moved closer, trying to read the flicker of worry in his expression. "What's going on?" Lisa stepped forward, her tone brisk. "Margaret Rogers isn't just attacking Adam's public image now. She's making a move to reduce his control in certain family-owned assets. She's rallying shareholders loyal to her side, and they could possibly remove Adam from decision-making positions." Adam ran a hand through his hair. "My mother claims I'm making reckless decisions. She's painting this entire donation and the breakup with Sophia as evidence of instability." Clara's eyes flashed with anger. "That's absurd. You're an adult, free to spend your money as you choose. Fred's expression was grim. Yes, but in the corporate world, perception can outweigh facts. The board might favor her if they fear losing profitability or connections. Lisa sighed, placing a stack of documents on Adam's desk. We've got legal opinions that Adam is well within his rights, but a well-timed smear campaign could sway votes. Tomorrow's meeting is crucial. If Margaret succeeds, Adam's capacity to back future phases of the hospital renovation might be limited. Clara inhaled sharply. The hospital's new equipment and expansions were reliant on Adam's ongoing support. If he lost financial power, future improvements could stall. What can we do? Adam pivoted to face her. I'm preparing a final stand, presenting the board with clear evidence of the hospital's progress, financial breakdowns, and the positive PR from philanthropic efforts. I'm also going to highlight the negative impact of outdated family politics on the company's reputation. He glanced at Lisa, who nodded. We'll show them that a modern, socially responsible approach, led by Adam, benefits both the company and the broader community. If we demonstrate how petty internal disputes are dragging us down, maybe the more sensible shareholders will side with him. Clara felt a surge of conviction. I'll help however I can. If you need me to speak about the renovation's impact or the dire need we have for better equipment, I'm ready. Adam's gaze softened. Having you there could help, but I don't want you to feel forced into a boardroom brawl. It can get ugly. She shook her head. I'm in this. We're on the verge of a huge positive change at the hospital. If your mother's narrative wins, a lot of good people will suffer. A faint smile tugged at Adam's lips. All right. We'll coordinate details first thing in the morning. They spent the next hour strategizing. Lisa compiled bullet points, Fred offered insights on some of the more conservative board members, and Clara contributed stories of patient struggles that could resonate on a human level. By the end, they had a plan, a unified front to present the facts and counter Margaret's manipulations. When Clara finally left, her mind buzzed with tension. She couldn't help but reflect on how far she'd come from her ordinary days as a nurse, with no time for politics or corporate drama. Now, she was stepping onto a larger stage, fueled by the conviction that saving lives was worth any battle. She'd fight alongside Adam to preserve his autonomy and protect the hospital's future, no matter how daunting the challenge ahead might be. A grey morning sky settled over downtown Chicago as Clara Baker hurried into the Rogers Holdings building, feeling an uncharacteristic knot of anxiety in her stomach. She had taken a rare day off from the hospital at Adam's request, preparing to speak directly to the board. The entire city seemed subdued, as if bracing for a storm. Fred greeted her in the lobby, guiding her to the executive boardroom on the top floor. Inside, a long, polished table dominated the space, around which sat a dozen board members in suits. Clara recognized Adam at the head, with Lisa at his side. Margaret Rogers occupied a seat to his left, her posture rigid, eyes scanning the room with an air of cold confidence. Clara felt her pulse race as she took a seat near Adam. She offered him a quick, reassuring glance, though her own nerves rattled. He returned a faint nod, determination flickering in his eyes. The meeting began with a curt introduction from the board's chair, then swiftly moved to the main topic, Adam's fitness to lead. Margaret cleared her throat, her voice slicing through the tension like a blade. In recent months, my son has shown concerning behavior, ending a significant engagement abruptly, funneling large sums into a hospital that may or may not yield measurable returns, damaging the trust of our long-standing partners. It's time we address these actions before irreparable harm is done. Adam remained composed. I've prepared a presentation to outline the rationale behind the hospital investment and to demonstrate that I am perfectly capable of making sound decisions for the company. But first, I'd like Mrs. Clara Baker to speak about the project's status. She can provide first-hand insight into how these funds are being utilized and the impact on the community. Margaret's eyes narrowed as Clara rose from her chair, but Clara refused to let intimidation weaken her resolve. She cleared her throat, voice steady as she began. I'm a nurse at the public hospital benefiting from Mr. Rogers's donation. When he arrived after a car accident, we saved his life under challenging conditions with outdated equipment. Since then, he's funded critical upgrades we sorely need. She projected a slide onto the screen, showing photos of newly renovated corridors and images of advanced medical tools in progress. We're cutting down wait times, diagnosing patients faster, and enhancing care quality. For instance, the new CT scanner will allow us to detect internal injuries more accurately, saving countless lives. One board member, a woman with salt and pepper hair, leaned forward, interest peaked. And how does this translate to positive outcomes for Rogers Holdings? Ms. Baker, that's our concern. Clara breathed in, recalling Lisa's guidance. Corporate social responsibility is no longer optional in today's business environment. Companies that invest in tangible community improvements gain public trust and loyal customers. The goodwill can lead to stronger brand recognition, partnerships, and even attract top talent who value ethical engagement. Adam stepped back in, taking control of the conversation. Additionally, we're documenting this initiative carefully. Our intention is to show investors that philanthropic efforts can coexist with stable returns. It's not about squandering resources, it's about using them in ways that benefit both society and our long-term corporate image. Margaret cut in, her voice sharp. I don't deny charity has its place, but how much more do you intend to give away? At what cost to the family's reputation among elite circles? Adam's jaw tightened. Elite circles that prioritize empty status over real impact are not circles I wish to remain beholden to. Our brand can thrive by being an innovator in social responsibility, rather than clinging to archaic definitions of prestige. A hum of disapproval rose from two members closely aligned with Margaret. They grumbled about traditions and family obligations, yet others seemed swayed by the logic and evidence. One man flipped through the financial breakdown Adam provided. These numbers suggest the hospital improvements could become a model for future philanthropic partnerships. There is potential for substantial positive media coverage if managed well. Margaret stiffened, realizing the tide might be turning. You're gambling company resources for personal sentiment, she accused. You're listening to a nurse who has no place dictating our business strategy. Clara bristled, but Adam's voice was calm. Ms. Baker isn't dictating anything. She's an expert in the needs of her hospital. I made the decision to fund those needs. Nobody forced me. This is a strategic pivot, not a whim. The tension grew thick. After a flurry of questions, the board called for a private vote on whether to limit Adam's decision-making powers. Clara returned to her seat, hands clammy. Lisa shot her a supportive look. Adam waited, expression guarded, while Margaret eyed the board members like a hawk. When the votes were tallied, the board's chair spoke, voice firm. It appears that a majority find Mr. Rogers' decision to invest in the public hospital acceptable, recognizing potential benefits to the company's image. Therefore, the motion to restrict Adam Rogers' executive powers does not pass. A mixture of relief and triumph flickered across Adam's face. Clara let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Margaret pursed her lips, clearly displeased. But the decision was made. Adam remained in control. In the aftermath, murmurs of conversation filled the room. A few members approached Adam, quietly congratulating him. Clara stepped back, heart pounding with a sense of victory. The confrontation had ended, not perfectly, but enough to keep their mission intact. And in that small triumph, she saw something deeper, the evidence that sometimes standing up for what's right truly does pay off in unexpected ways. Adam caught her eye and offered a grateful smile, a silent acknowledgement of the battle they'd just won together. The reward wasn't just preserving the hospital donation or Adam's position. It was the knowledge that integrity and compassion could hold their ground against even the most entrenched forces. A few days after the decisive board meeting, Clara Baker stood in the early morning light, gazing through the large window of a newly renovated hospital wing. The construction workers had cleared away most of their tools, leaving behind fresh floors and walls painted in soft hues of blue. She could still catch faint whiffs of paint, but the improvements were striking. The once cramped corridors now offered wider space for gurneys and wheelchairs, and an updated nurses' station stood proudly, equipped with modern computers and monitors. Clara exhaled, shoulders relaxing. The tension that had weighed on her for months felt slightly lighter today. Adam Rogers' victory at Rogers Holdings meant the renovation funding remained intact, and progress on the hospital project continued without interruption. No more urgent meetings about cancelled donations, no frantic calls from Lisa Carter about board votes. For the first time in what felt like ages, Clara could focus on her true calling, caring for patients. She walked over to a patient's bed by the window. Mrs. Hernandez, who had been battling complications from diabetes, reclined comfortably, enjoying the view of the city's skyline. Clara checked her charts with a gentle smile. "How are you feeling this morning?" Mrs. Hernandez's eyes sparkled. "Never better. This new room is so peaceful, and the nurses have been so attentive." She reached for Clara's hand, giving it a light squeeze. "I hear you had something to do with all these improvements." Clara chuckled softly. "I did my part, but it was a team effort. We're just glad patients can benefit from the new facilities." Inside, she felt a swell of gratitude. There was still a lot to do, but for now, the hospital had taken a significant step forward. After finishing her rounds, Clara found Dr. Richard Coleman in the upgraded nurses' station, reviewing patient updates on a computer screen. He nodded as she approached. "We still have a few finishing touches before this wing is fully operational, but the difference is night and day. How's Mrs. Hernandez?" "She's doing well, thankful for the quieter environment," Clara replied. "I have to say, it's a relief to see the hospital moving forward without all the uncertainty." Dr. Coleman leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "The staff is motivated. Morale is higher than I've seen in years. Whatever the tabloids have said, the people here know you helped secure this future." Clara gave a modest shrug. "We all helped. I just happened to be the middlewoman, between Adam's resources and the hospital's needs." A soft hum from her phone interrupted them. Checking the screen, she saw a message from Evelyn, her mother. "Morning, honey. Doctor says I might try a new medication. Feeling hopeful. When can we chat?" Clara's eyes lit up. Her mother's health had been a constant worry, but since starting advanced physical therapy and better medication options, some of which had been funded by a staff assistance program Adam quietly set up, Evelyn's condition had stabilized more than Clara dared hope. She stepped away to reply, promising to stop by later in the day. Afterward, she paused near a large window that overlooked the hospital's courtyard. The early morning sun cast warm patterns on the tile floor. For the first time in a long while, she had the space to notice simple beauty. Her phone chimed again, this time from Lisa. "Adam wants to drop by this afternoon to see the new wing. Are you free to show him around?" Clara felt her stomach flutter. Even after everything they'd faced, a hint of nervous energy always surfaced when she thought about Adam's visits. She typed back a quick affirmative response. Over the past few days, they'd shared only brief texts or calls, focusing on coordinating final construction needs. She was glad for a moment to breathe, but she also missed his presence, the candid way he'd confided in her. Shortly after lunch, she was finalizing patient notes when Adam arrived. He walked with quiet confidence, wearing a light overcoat that suited his lean frame. His arm, once in a sling, now moved freely, though he occasionally rotated his shoulder as if testing lingering aches. The moment he spotted Clara, he offered a subtle, genuine smile. "Nurse Baker, ready to show me all the new bells and whistles?" he asked, his tone playful. She grinned back. "Absolutely, Mr. Rogers, but I warn you, it might take more than a few minutes. We've made extensive changes." They strolled through the corridors together, discussing everything from the newly installed monitors in the ER to the advanced imaging equipment arriving soon. As they turned a corner, they ran into a small group of nurses, all of whom greeted Adam with appreciative smiles. While some whispered curiously about the rumored drama with his family, there was no denying the respect they felt for the man who helped transform their workplace. Eventually, they reached a quiet corridor near the staff lounge. The halls here remained less traveled, still marked by "under renovation" signs. Adam paused, resting a hand on the freshly painted wall. "Remember the first time I visited you here after the accident? I barely knew how things worked in a public hospital. Now, it feels like I've spent a lifetime learning." Clara nodded. "And we've come such a long way since that night." "I'm glad you stayed the course, despite everything." Adam's expression softened. "I couldn't have done it without you. You never hesitated to remind me what this was all for, even when my mother and others tried to derail it." She fiddled with the ID badge clipped to her scrub top. "We all played our parts, but I'm grateful you chose to fight. Without your persistence, none of this would be real." For a brief moment, a comfortable silence enveloped them. Clara studied Adam's face, noticing the faint worry lines had eased since the board meeting, yet she also knew the healing of emotional wounds took longer than physical ones. They resumed their walk, stepping around a toolbox someone had left in the hallway. She gestured to an empty set of rooms. "We're turning these into private consultation offices. Families will have a quiet space to talk to doctors about sensitive matters." Adam nodded. "Small touches that make a big difference. People need dignity when they're vulnerable." Their conversation felt weighty, yet hopeful, like a calm dawn after a stormy night. There was still work ahead, unresolved family tensions on his side and personal uncertainties on hers. But this moment, this quiet corridor full of promise, was enough to keep them both moving forward. Late the next afternoon, Clara pulled into the parking lot of the modest apartment complex where she lived with her mother. The sun was low, bathing the brick buildings in a muted glow. She climbed the steps to her unit, mind churning with the day's events. Renovations at the hospital continued to gain momentum. The Staff Assistance Fund Adam had initiated was already helping colleagues cover education costs, childcare, and medical bills. Clara couldn't help but feel amazed at how much had changed since the night of Adam's accident. Inside, she found Evelyn seated on the couch, knitting needles clicking methodically. The TV murmured in the background, broadcasting a local talk show about charity work. Evelyn set her knitting aside as Clara entered. "You look tired, but in a good way," her mother observed gently. "How was today?" Clara removed her shoes and settled beside her mother, sinking into the worn cushions. "Productive. The new lab should be operational by next week, which means quicker test results for patients. It's amazing to see it all come together." Evelyn's eyes gleamed with pride. And how about Adam? I saw a news clip of him touring the hospital with you. Everyone seemed impressed. Clara hesitated, recalling the quiet moments she and Adam shared. He's all right, I think. Still dealing with fallout from his family, but the board drama at his company settled down for now. He's focusing on the philanthropic side of things, which is good. Evelyn's smile grew wistful. He's done a wonderful thing, and so have you. Sometimes it takes meeting the right person to bring out the best parts of ourselves. A gentle warmth spread through Clara's chest at her mother's words. She couldn't deny the closeness she felt toward Adam. Though their dynamic remained unspoken, they had navigated a crisis together, forging a bond deeper than professional courtesy. Yet the complexities of his old engagement and his powerful family still loomed in the background. After a simple dinner, Clara helped her mother organize medication for the week. Evelyn's arthritis had improved slightly, thanks to the physical therapy. The new Staff Assistance Fund covered some cutting-edge treatments, alleviating a burden Clara had carried for years. Even something as routine as setting out pill bottles on a table felt lighter, as if a massive weight had lifted from their shoulders. "Adam did this for us, you know," Evelyn said softly, swallowing her usual pride. "You told me once how he offered to pay for my treatments, and you refused. It may not be direct now, but without his influence, these new therapies wouldn't be affordable." Clara nodded, placing each pill bottle in its designated slot. "I'm grateful. Sometimes I wonder if I should have accepted his help right from the start. Could have spared us some worry." She paused, then chuckled ruefully. "But I guess that's not my style, is it?" Evelyn patted Clara's hand. "No, you've always been independent. Still, it's nice to see you've allowed yourself to lean on someone, at least a little." The conversation turned to lighter topics: a neighbor's new puppy, the next grocery run, the crocheting patterns Evelyn wanted to try. Yet even in these mundane details, Clara felt the ripple effect of her hospital journey. She noticed her mother's posture, a touch straighter than before, and the slight glow in her cheeks that came from less pain. The changes in the hospital had spilled into her own life, offering renewed energy. Later that evening, after helping Evelyn to bed, Clara nestled onto the couch to respond to messages. Her phone had been buzzing throughout dinner. She saw a text from Lisa, one from Julie and one from Dr. Coleman, all routine hospital updates. Then, near the bottom of her notifications, a short note from Adam. "How's your mum doing? If you're up for it, I'd like to visit her sometime. No business, just to say hello." Clara felt her heart skip. She typed back, "She's well. I'm sure she'd love that. I'll talk to her in the morning." A part of her worried about mixing personal visits with their professional bond, yet the closeness they had forged made it feel natural that he should drop by and see the woman who had shaped Clara's life so profoundly. She thought of how she once believed she'd never see Adam again after she saved him that fateful night. Now, he was woven into her daily reality in ways she never anticipated. The next morning, she woke to sunlight pouring through thin curtains, a sense of calm enveloping her. She had a later shift at the hospital, enough time to share tea with her mother and perhaps text Adam about a visit. For all the changes swirling around her, there was a certain comfort in returning to the ordinary routines of her home. An apartment that once felt stifling with worry now felt like a place of quiet growth. Standing by the kitchen window, she thought of how far they'd come. The path ahead still held uncertainties, but each day brought new reasons to trust in the possibilities life offered. And somewhere in the tapestry of those possibilities stood Adam, a presence both steadying and full of potential. One crisp afternoon, Clara found herself in a small auditorium near the hospital's administrative wing. Dr. Coleman had invited her to speak at a workshop for fellow nurses and medical staff from neighboring clinics. The theme was ethics and empathy in patient care, and Clara's journey over the past months had made her an unexpected example of moral clarity under pressure. Standing behind a podium, she surveyed the modest audience, around 30 healthcare professionals, all looking at her with varying degrees of curiosity. She gripped a note card in one hand, though her nerves demanded she keep both hands steady on the wooden surface. "Thank you for having me," she began, voice echoing slightly. "I'm Clara Baker, a nurse at this hospital. I never imagined standing here talking about anything beyond practical patient care. But my recent experiences showed me the power of standing up for what's right, even when it's not easy." She glanced at Dr. Coleman, who offered an encouraging nod from the front row. Julie McAdams sat beside him, beaming with pride. Drawing a steadying breath, Clara described how the hospital had operated with outdated equipment and limited resources for years. She explained the turning point, the night of Adam Rogers' accident, and how his subsequent donation began transforming not just their physical space, but also their sense of possibility. "What I learned," she continued, "is that empathy extends beyond just the patient lying in front of you. Sometimes, empathy means understanding the struggles of your team or the moral dilemmas faced by those who want to help but don't know how. We each have a role to play, whether it's performing life-saving measures or guiding funds to where they're needed most." A question came from a nurse in the second row. "How did you stay true to your ethics when people accused you of having ulterior motives?" Clara paused, choosing her words carefully. "I knew my purpose was to help the hospital and its patients, not to gain personal benefits. When you have a strong moral compass, you can weather accusations by returning to the reason you chose healthcare, to serve, having supportive colleagues and mentors who understood my intentions helped me keep my head high." As she spoke, she recalled the swirl of tabloid rumors, Margaret Rogers's hostility, and the pressure to either accept or refuse Adam's personal help. It was a complex path, but her guiding principle had been to maintain integrity, focusing on genuine care. The audience leaned in, capturing every word. After the workshop ended, several attendees approached, sharing stories of their own ethical trials, navigating budget constraints, administrative hurdles, and sometimes questionable demands from higher-ups. Clara offered what advice she could, reinforcing the need for open communication and collective action. She admitted she was no seasoned expert, just someone who had stumbled into a high-stakes situation and managed to hold her ground. Julie caught up with her as she gathered her notes. "That was amazing," Julie said, eyes shining. "It's so inspiring to see how you've grown into this role." Clara tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "Thanks, but it still feels surreal. I'm just glad if my story helps others stand up for their patients, Doctor." Coleman joined them, his expression unusually warm. "I can't recall the last time a nurse from this hospital had such a profound impact on the morale of staff and the surrounding medical community. Clara, you've done us proud." Before Clara could respond, her phone buzzed with a text from Adam. "I heard you were speaking today. Hope it went well. If you're free this evening, let's celebrate your success and the hospital's progress." She felt her cheeks flush. The idea of celebrating felt both appealing and nerve-wracking. She typed back a simple confirmation, deciding she would find time to meet him after her shift ended. The sense of camaraderie they had built extended beyond the donation itself. They had each faced public scrutiny and personal doubts, emerging with a stronger sense of purpose. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low behind the hospital's silhouette, Clara walked toward the parking lot, passing the half-finished mural in the lobby that depicted healthcare workers as everyday heroes. She paused to admire its bright colors, reflecting the spirit of renewal the hospital was undergoing. Her phone chimed again with a reminder for dinner plans. Adam had booked a table at a nearby bistro. She left the building with a renewed sense of accomplishment. Every day, more of the staff recognized that compassion could drive meaningful change. It wasn't just about receiving charity from a billionaire, but understanding how to integrate that generosity with the hospital's core values. And with each new conversation, Clara felt the weight of her own transformation settling into place. A quiet assurance that she had grown beyond the timid nurse who once believed her dreams were too far to reach. Night cloaked the city in a soft hush as Clara and Adam stepped out of a cozy bistro near Lake Michigan. The evening had been a welcome reprieve from the hospital's constant demands and the political drama that had dogged them for months. They walked side by side along a path that skirted the water, with tall reeds swaying in the gentle breeze. A faint moonlight glimmered on the lake's surface, reflecting a quiet sense of peace. Clara drew her jacket closer. "Thank you for dinner. It's strange to think how much has changed since we first met under those glaring hospital lights." Adam glanced over, the corners of his eyes crinkling with a half smile. "Strange, yes, but also essential. I can't imagine where I'd be if you hadn't been there that night." He paused, looking out over the dark expanse of water. "I was so lost in my family's expectations, trapped by obligations. Then you came along, saving my life in more ways than one." She studied his profile, remembering the day he arrived at the hospital battered and unconscious. It felt like a lifetime ago. "You saved yourself, Adam," she murmured. "I just provided a push in the right direction." They continued walking until they found a small bench near the water's edge. The air held a slight chill, but Clara welcomed the freshness. Adam removed his coat, draping it gently over her shoulders without a word. She stiffened slightly out of habit. Accepting help still felt foreign, but she offered no protest. "Sometimes letting someone care for you was part of growth," she reminded herself. After a moment of companionable silence, Adam inhaled deeply. "I had another conversation with my mother. She's still furious, but I told her plainly that I won't back down from supporting the hospital. And if that means the end of certain family alliances, then so be it." His tone was tinged with sorrow. Though resolute, Clara felt an ache of sympathy. She recalled Evelyn's advice about how breaking away from old patterns often came at a cost. "Family is complicated, but you're building something better now. You've helped thousands of people who will never know your name, but they'll feel the impact of what you've done." He nodded, turning to face her. "And what about us?" he asked, voice low. "I know we've maintained that everything was purely about the hospital, but there's more, isn't there?" Her heart pounded. They had skirted around this topic for so long, each focusing on the philanthropic mission, each conscious of the swirling rumors, yet the magnetic pull between them had been undeniable. "I think so," she finally managed, her voice a soft murmur. "I know we come from different worlds, and we've been through such intense drama, but when I look at you, I feel a sense of belonging I can't ignore." Adam took her hand, lacing his fingers through hers. The wind ruffled his hair, and his eyes shone with a tenderness that melted her lingering hesitation. "I don't have all the answers, Clara. My life is still messy, but I'd like to figure it out with you, if you'll let me." She exhaled, relief mingling with excitement. "I'd like that too, if we go slowly, on our own terms." He offered a grateful smile, giving her hand a gentle squeeze. One step at a time, then. They lingered, the water lapping softly against the shore. High above, stars pricked through the inky sky, and the city lights glowed faintly in the distance. Despite the unresolved threads, Margaret Rogers's bitterness, lingering media scrutiny, and the ever-present responsibilities at the hospital, this moment felt safe, a quiet haven carved out just for them. When they eventually rose to leave, Adam slipped his arm around Clara's shoulder. She allowed the closeness, feeling no urge to pull away. The path back to the parking lot seemed shorter than before, as if time condensed around them. Upon reaching her car, they stood under a lamppost, the warm glow illuminating the gentle smiles they shared. She looked up, searching his face. Tomorrow will bring new challenges. We still have equipment deliveries to coordinate, staff training schedules to finalize and Dr. Coleman's next wave of improvements. Adam brushed a thumb across her cheek, eyes flickering with affection. Yes, and I'll be right there beside you, for each and every one of those steps. That is, if you'll have me. Clara let out a small laugh, her chest brimming with a mix of happiness and anticipation. I wouldn't want it any other way. He placed a light, almost tentative kiss on her forehead, then stepped back, contentment in his expression. In that shared glance, they acknowledged the uncharted path they were about to walk, together, guided by the lessons learned from heartbreak, healing, and the steadfast desire to bring hope where it was needed most. A gentle breeze stirred, rustling the branches overhead. The city's lights blinked in quiet solidarity, as if to affirm that life, in all its complexity, was made richer by moments of authenticity and courageous choices. And as Clara slid into her car, feeling Adam's gaze follow her, she realized that the love she once deemed impossible now stood just a heartbeat away, ready to unfold with each new dawn. They parted with a promise unspoken, each carrying the echoes of the battles they'd fought and the belief that their greatest triumph still lay ahead. I hope you enjoyed today's story. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more stories like this. Leave a like and comment below what you thought of the story. See you in the next video.